Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. I'm sick. Here, I'll take my temperature right now. 100.7, if you can see that. I feel all right, but all of a sudden I just started feeling kind of loopy. This may not be a long stream. This may not be very long. I feel all right. I wake up feeling great, and then around this time of the day I start feeling sick again. I don't know. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Yeah, so the thing, like, I want to rest, but I also don't want, like, I've been wanting to stream the past few days. I gotta get the stream in because I'm just sitting here with nothing else to do. Yeah, I'm gonna be real loopy today. Well, I see, here's the thing. If I pointed at my forehead, it's right, but also I've pointed it at my tongue before, and, I've gotten that same temperature, so I don't know. Hello. Welcome in, everyone. We're going to be working on Listed today, and we're going to be designing the database. Like I said, it'll probably be a quick one. We're just going to get right into it, start designing this database. So, yeah. We're going to be using Prisma, which is an ORM to design the database, and I'm also open to suggestions for like visual design tools. I found a couple earlier when I was searching the web, so we'll probably bring those up. But I think ultimately we're just going to write Prisma schema, so we can read the docs on Prisma schema, and that's basically how we're going to design our database. If you've seen me do it in the past, typically I use an ERD, or an entity relationship diagram. This one. So this is the name for a diagram typically used to diagram the relationships between entities. We're working with a SQL database, so we have entities, they have relationships. That's what we're going to be doing. And Danif, thank you for the prime. Appreciate it. And if you haven't been keeping up, Listed is an app that will allow users to create, share, and watch lists of YouTube channels. So, for instance, I can create a list of all of my favorite cooking channels, like the Babbage Culinary Universe, and You Suck at Cooking, and Maddie Matheson, and Munchies, and then I can create a feed where I only see videos from those specific channels. That's the idea, and then I can share that feed with others. Yeah, so we have a couple of domains, but I bought a new one because I was thinking about, like, what's the easiest to type in, or what's the catchiest? So I've got a couple of domains. We'll probably use all of them, honestly. Listed.me is the shortest. Listed.media, I bought both of those last time we were streaming, because I was like, okay, we could call this Listed Media, and then if we want short URLs, we could do listed.me. But then I was thinking, it was like, if you're trying to tell somebody about this website, it's a little weirder to go to a .me domain. But what's up, Prof. Peter? We'll be 7. I also bought listedmedia.com, just so, like, in case, okay. But then yesterday I was thinking about this, and I bought Listed TV, because it's like, we go to twitch.tv. That's like a nice catchy domain. Listed.coding.com. We could do that too. And then I also bought listedtv.com. I'm out of control. I'm buying all kinds of domains. I don't know. But I think we're gonna settle on Listed TV. I think the reason we didn't go with listed.tv first is because eventually we will have other things other than just YouTube channels. So we're also gonna have, like, Instagram. I guess technically a lot of those are videos, but we could have images. I mean, the domains are probably like $10 a piece. I like listed.tv, though, because it reminds me of twitch.tv. Scope script starting early. Yeah, that's the thing. We're going to focus on YouTube channels first, and then we'll go from there. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, if you're just joining us, I feel sick. Gesto, thank you very much for that prime. And Prashant, thank you for the 3 months. I missed that. What do I want to say? Yeah, I wake up with so much energy. I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I was just doing stuff, and I felt great. And then I went back to sleep, and then I woke up and I felt all right. And then before stream I was feeling fine, and now I'm feeling weird. I don't know. We should probably just get right into it. Never go back to sleep. Exactly. Listed.me is your favorite of the bunch. Open for future scope creep. Yeah. I mean, I think for now though, like listed.tv just seems so. I think I already said this. It seems so catchy because it's like twitch.tv, you know. But you know. What's up, Ibaldi? Welcome in. Let's say hi to everyone. And then design a database. So some people ask, what is Prisma? Prisma is an ORM, an object relational mapper that I can't complete thoughts. I should. We need to get into it. So check out Prisma.io. Read about it. I can't teach you about it right now. I'm not in the right state of mind. Let's say hi to everyone, and then we'll get into this. If you want me to say hi to you, say hi, hello, hello, hey, yo, cheers, greetings, hi, up, what's up, morning, afternoon, evening, howdy, good day, coding, hi-yo, vo-hi-yo, boga, hey. Say any one of these things. I'll acknowledge you. I'll say hi right back to you. What's up? Welcome in, everybody. An hour ago, Salahuddin was the first to say hello. Actually, so I have a monitor over there now. I set this up. The thing is, like, yesterday I was feeling great. I set up a new monitor. But now I can point over here, and it looks like I'm looking at the screen. See? Instead of like this. See? Oh, thank you, see. What's up, Danny Swan? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you for the well wishes. But hello, Salahuddin. Welcome in. What's up, America 2050 and Zelino and Mark Boots and Pob Plip and Ryan and Limotes? What's up, Clicky Poo and Bacon Partner and Burnto Rice and Shirkum and Farshid and Veeb and Granik and Biggs and Luizda and Pete Pal and Tanner Barcelos? What's up, Moshiko and the Jive and Michael Agarkov? And what's up, Kilish and Fob and Oscar and Josh, and I am Speedy and Prashant and Zayad and Part-Time Married and Ep21 and Mr. T. Magush and Pablo. What's up, Danif, MD Subuntu and Ibaldi. Hello, Nesby and Danger Mouse and Porky and Platnot Pratt and Shulman and Derp Sauce. How's it going, the Oxd and Prawin and Q21 and Sequel Gordster and CJSD. Hello, what's up, Qgeki and the Skied. And I Watch Naked, what's up? And P. Ton Hosey, how's it going? What's up, UX Web and X Palma and RS Romano, who asked, will this be a project we can contribute to? Absolutely. So there's a GitHub repo. Eventually, we're going to have a bunch of issues on here. So right now, these are just high-level issues of like project setup, database design, that kind of thing. But eventually, we'll be adding issues for features, and I'm open to reviewing pull requests for this one. I think the initial things I want to build myself and I want to build on stream, but if there's like a bug fix or something like that, I'm more than happy to merge a pull request. What's up, Sherwar Eagle, and hello, Aman. We're working with SvelteKit for the stack, and we're going to use Postgres for the database, and Prisma is the library we're using to talk to the database. So I didn't even think about that, but we're probably going to set up Docker today, so that we can get a Postgres database up and going. That's going to happen. What's up, WBW? And Vulture Bike, welcome in, everyone. Thanks for saying hello. A lot of newbies, a lot of first-timers. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And, hi. Welcome. Like I said, I'm gonna be very scatterbrained today. At a certain point, I'm probably just going to end the stream. But I want to be live. I like hanging out with everybody. I'm happy to be here. As you can tell, like, for whatever reason, I'm sick, but I also have energy. I don't know. Welcome in, everybody. Mink Funky is saying, thank you for your work so far. You inspired me as a designer or front-end dev to work with SvelteKit and digging more into the back end. Nice. I hope I can now realize all my ideas. I hope you can as well. What's up, Live Homage? Thank you for that, Prime. Yeah, I don't think we'll see American 2050. I think that my plan, or what I'm thinking right now, is we do it without TRPC first, and then we add TRPC if we think we need it. But I don't think we'll need it because SvelteKit does have some full stack type safety. And Danger Mouse, thank you for that resub. What's up, Lazy and Tutor, and Pumbo. Hello, Pumbo. Welcome in. Thank you. I can't settle on a hairstyle, which is why I've been wearing a hat all these past few streams. But I think it worked out. I did it so. I get really obsessed if I'm like trying to style my hair and it doesn't look the way that I want. But what I did today was I put the product in it, and then I was like, that's it. I'm not going to touch it again. And I think it worked out. What's up, Smokey? Glad to have you here. And I am Speedy. You sound like you have a cold. Yeah, today is the first day that I sound like this. The past few days, like I've had a fever, but I didn't sound like this. So I don't know. Yeah, exactly, Mark Boots. Dream Stack. Nice. No, I'm not leaving yet. And thank you, Coleman. Welcome in. Thank you. All right. The methodology I like to embrace is ports and adapters. That way you create interfaces and implement fake repos before the DB design to quickly iterate UI and flow and allow easy testing. Yeah, I like that idea. This is my break timer if you want to take a stretch at home. So what RS Romano is saying is basically you build out the UI and you fake out the data as you go to really realize what kind of data you need. That's definitely a way to do things. I've never done that. I typically always go like database first, but I think especially like if you're rapid prototyping or you don't have a backend person or a database designer, I think that's a really good way to get started as well. Yeah. I agree, Limeotes. I think like dependency management and like talking about the things you add to projects is something I want to do more content on because the more experience you have, the more you realize the more you're aware of the dependencies you add in a project and stuff like that. Oh, cool, Jolteon. I'll have to take a look. Who's this YouTuber? 10x your SvelteKit developer experience. I'll have to take a look. So Huntabite. I think I've heard of their channel. Yeah. I didn't plan on doing anything test driven. I don't know. Flyway DB. I've never heard of that either. Yeah, I heard of Zod and I use it. Zod is really cool. If you could explain what it is exactly, I don't really get it. Zod allows you to create data validators. So let's just look at Zod on npm. Not Zoed, Zod, Z-O-D. So if you've heard of, so before Zod, there were a lot of things. There are things like happy, joy, yup. All of these libraries allow you to define object schemas for validating things. So if you look at, as an example, let's see. Something like this. So this is a Zod schema that will validate that an object has a username property, and that username property is a string. So for example, if we pass this object into it, Zod is going to say, yes, good job. That satisfies this schema. But if we pass in an object that doesn't have a username property or has a username property that is a boolean or a number, Zod will say bad, very bad. So that's Zod. And it has so you can create object schemas. Like this works really well when we're dealing with APIs and databases because we can create these schemas for all of the things in our database, and we can create these things for all of the data that we're accepting via the API, and then we can instantly validate it. But the other cool thing about Zod that things like yup and joy and happy don't do is this also creates TypeScript types. So you could create this schema like this, but this little line of code is literally going to create a TypeScript interface that has a username property that is a string. So we're definitely going to be using Zod in this project, but I found it this morning. There's a Prisma Zod. I can't type. I can't speak. I think I found this. Yeah, the Prisma Zod generator. So because we're going to be using Prisma, we're going to be defining our database with code that looks like this, and then we can pass this into the Prisma Zod generator, and it will actually generate Zod validators for us. There might be another one. This one has 4,000 weekly downloads. I found one that was like pretty popular. We'll figure it out when we get there, but that is what Zod is. Yeah. Schema and validator all in one, and type generator all in one. Yeah. Kneel before General Zod. Um, hey, Don Piano. I don't know. So I haven't done code reviews in a long time. We'll see. If you join the Discord, shoot me a message like on Ask CJ Anything in the Ask CJ Anything channel. I'll see what I can do. But that's super interesting. So you're creating a trading card game like with web technologies? That sounds interesting. Yeah. How's that different from just defining interface and types? Because an interface alone will not. It'll throw a TypeScript error, sure, but TypeScript errors are compile time errors. Whereas this will throw a runtime error if the validation is not valid. I'm realizing how hard it is to explain things when you don't have a lot of energy. What's up, Halit? If you check out the frequently asked questions, I have my information on that, specifically on right here. So I use DuckDuckGo as my search engine, and then it has those things called bang commands, and then it lets me do all that cool stuff. All right. We're gonna increase slow mode just because I can't, but I want to talk to everybody because I appreciate. See, here, this is the other reason I wanted to go live is like, the past 2 weeks have been. There's been a lot going on my YouTube channel and on my Twitter, and so there's just so many more people that are finding me. And a lot of people specifically were looking forward to this stream because they know they want to see this full stack app build. So it's like, I gotta at least go live a little bit. Also, thanks to all the new subs. Also, go sub to the archive channel. I am 25 subscribers away from being able to monetize the archive channel. So go subscribe right now. I'm gonna focus. I will focus. Also, this is another thing I did this morning. I created a playlist called, so if you're new to the Coding Garden, or maybe you've been here just a few months, but you don't know what Coding Garden used to be like, check out this playlist. I called it Classic Coding Garden. And I just created this playlist while laying in bed this morning. There's probably some other streams that I can add to this, but these are like defining moments over the past 3 or so years of Coding Garden that some of the stream memes came from. Some of these are just like fun to watch. I don't know, if you're looking for something to do, go check out that playlist. It's got a lot of stuff. Okay. What's the value in Zod plus Prisma? What is both that one does not? I don't believe Prisma has validators. Like, we'll have to dig into this, Ryan, but I believe if you try to insert something into the database that does not adhere to the schema, you get an actual database error. So an error from like Postgres that says this thing is not good. But typically what you want to do is you want to pass that data through a validator first, so that way you're not using your database to validate the data. I realize that seems redundant, but you can also prevent attacks on your database if you validate the data before trying to put it in, if that makes sense. But we'll see. I do think. Do we make it? Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. This channel has all the VODs from this past year, and then all the VODs keep getting uploaded here. But I guess that's another thing. Over here on Twitch, I started unpublishing the VODs so that people go watch over on the archive channel. What is happening here? This. So if you click on videos, you're actually only going to see like one recent VOD. But if you go to this place, you'll see all the VODs. Well, thanks everyone. I really appreciate you subscribing so quickly. All right. Here we go. Benchmark of TypeScript validators. Nice. I'm not gonna click it. I have a. I don't care. Not that I don't care about your link, and not that I don't care, and I appreciate you for sharing. And if you care about benchmarks and speed, click that link. But here's the thing. Not once have I complained about how slow Zod is, or even how slow like Yup is. Yup, I use a lot in front end code, or even how slow like Joy used to be the thing before like Yup came along. Did I say Happy earlier? I was wrong. No, Happy is the team that created Joy, like Happy Joy, like Ren and Stimpy. All of that to say, just use what works and what developer experience you like. There's also Typebox, which I recently learned about. That's not it. This one. But this one's interesting because it also does JSON schema. But all that to say, like, I don't care how fast it is. Like, they're all going to validate my schema within a few milliseconds. I don't know. What are words? Okay, we're gonna focus now. We're gonna focus. Yeah, the ordering pizza stream was fun. Like, if you, so yeah, just I keep getting sidetracked. We're gonna get started. I swear, we're gonna get started soon. But this pizza right here, order a pizza with JavaScript. I literally, let's take a quick stretch. I literally reverse engineered the Domino's website and then wrote a JavaScript library to order a pizza and then had the pizza delivered all in 4 hours. In 4 hours, I reverse engineered their API, wrote a script, ordered the pizza, had the pizza delivered, ate the pizza on stream. That was a thing. 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Tanjiran. Appreciate it. Archive channel is perfect to put on the background while working. Appreciate that, Mark Boots. Yeah, I think I probably need to create some more playlists on the archive channel, like, to group things together. All of the playlists mainly are on my main channel. I don't know. Yeah. What are my thoughts on which DB to use? So if you went with Supabase, you have two options, because Supabase actually gives you your Postgres database connection URL. And so technically, you could just use that connection URL with Prisma and then create all of your models in Prisma. Otherwise, you could go the actual Supabase route and just use their client library. So like if you look at their documentation, what are words? I'm trying to okay, we're here. What do we do? The Allion. The Alley one. Welcome in. Yeah, there was a Hot Wings edition. I've been meaning to redo it at some point, but I never did. But I literally ate a progressively spicier hot wing and solved progressively harder coding problems. And it was a good time. Also, at the time I couldn't get the dab, but I did get Blair's Megadeth sauce. And if I did it again, I probably would do it in reverse. So like solve a really hard problem for the easy hot sauces, and then solve easier problems for the hard hot sauce, for the spicier hot sauces. What are we doing? I can't think straight, Ryan. But if you look in their documentation, there is, it's probably in database. There is a specific API that they give you in an SDK for talking to the database, so that you wouldn't need something like Prisma. You would just use their library to talk to the database. And it's really up to you. I mean, their library is full featured. It has like the real-time stuff built in. So yeah. But at the end of the day, your Supabase database is Postgres, so you could do all of that stuff and then still have access to it with Prisma if you really wanted to. Yeah. I agree with that, America 2050. Put it in the Discord so I don't forget. But yeah, I need like a tiny little explainer video. Also, while I'm still getting distracted, I did a thing today that I didn't know was possible. I published this video without alerting my subscribers. So like this is the coding channel, the overview of the channel that like gives a rundown of everything. But I purposefully left it unlisted because I didn't want to annoy people with publishing a video that's like, I mean, most people that are subscribed already know what my channel is about, so they wouldn't want to watch that. But I didn't know this was a thing. When you publish a video, there's an option to say, do not alert subscribers. And that's what I did. And surprisingly, it still has 500 views even without alerting my subscribers. Yeah. Wait, Oscar says, I was so surprised? What do you mean? Who was surprised? What? All right, I have to I have to skip past all this. Yeah, so okay, I will address this though, because Ryan is saying don't feel rushed. Part of what I love about these streams is that we talk about all the things. I don't know how other people feel about that, but the stream is awesome for interaction. Yeah, so but it's like I have multiple audiences, right? You have the people that are here to hang out, here to learn, here to watch. It's great. I love you all. Thank you for doing that, because there's a lot of you. There are also people that they just want to see me do the thing. And then there are also people that don't know what they want, but they're so used to like edited content and scripted content that they're used to just seeing the person do the thing, so they want to see that. So it's like I'm trying to balance both, right? But obviously I'm not doing a very good job because we're 40 minutes into stream and I haven't written any code yet. So here we go. Yeah, the red background is people's first time messages in chat. That's why you're seeing that. Okay. Do the dance? What? That's the thing though, Ryan, is like we need to convert them, right? We need to convert them into being long format watchers. Yeah. Oh, thank you, SQL Gortster. It was the first vid in your timeline? Yeah, but you should not have gotten like a push notification from the YouTube app, right? Yeah. And we'll answer this, and then we'll get right into designing the database. So Anna asks, Postgres is a relational database. Why did you choose it over a document type database? Let's do it. Let's talk about it. So if you're not familiar, I mean, maybe you are. Welcome in, Adpar from France. Glad to have you. A document-oriented database, also known as NoSQL. And MongoDB was probably one of the first to really popularize this idea of a NoSQL database and a document store. But if you've ever worked with like MongoDB, it's really easy. Like, one of the interesting things about working with MongoDB is you don't have to define the schemas up front. So MongoDB, really easy to get up and going. And I'll be honest, like I don't know about the latest stuff in MongoDB, but I do believe in like the latest versions of MongoDB, they actually do support schemas. So you can actually have, I believe, database level data validation, but for a long time it didn't have that. What's up, Terawatt? It's slow because I'm really scatterbrained today. But yes, working with MongoDB, very easy. And the issue is, if you want to have relationships in your MongoDB database, and the thing is you can have relationships because you can just do foreign key IDs like you would in a SQL database. But the issue is those foreign key relationships are not validated by the database. So if you insert something into a document store and it has a foreign key that's supposed to reference some other document store, is that the right term? Collection, not document store, collection. So if you insert something, let's give a better example. Do I want to try and draw this? I bought new markers. Let's try drawing this. I guess I probably, first of all, I need to just take a breath. I need to just take a breath. Second of all, I think I need to go grab my wireless microphone. Actually, you tell me, can you hear me all right? Can you hear me all right if I'm standing over here? Or do I need to go get an external microphone? Sounds fine? It's fine. All right, let's go with it. Okay, so for example, let's say you have a user collection. And so this is going to store all of your users, right? So let's say I have the CJ user, and that gets thrown in there. And then let's say I have the Oscar user. Can hear you, can't see you. What? wait, what? You should be able to see me right now. I see it in the monitor. Please clarify, Oscar. Lies? Okay. Oscar's drunk. I mean, okay, so we have, let's say we have all these users stored in the user collection. Great. Now, let's say users have something, right? So let's say we have the item collection. And all of these users need to have IDs. This is like the worst diagram ever. Let's start over. Oh, you know what? Did I not send a Discord notification? Oh, I did. Ched. I'm getting so distracted. But I sent an email. I sent a tweet. I did it in the I sent a Discord message. I sent the notifications. I'm pretty sure I did. Okay. We have a user collection. And so I'm gonna diagram this as if we were using a document store like MongoDB. Okay, so we have the user collection. Now let's say we have users that have names. So I have like CJ, and this is in here. And then users also have an ID. And let's say this just has the ID 1. If you're using Mongo, you're gonna have Mongo IDs, but it's fine. Collection is the same, and so that's one way to think about this. Yeah, we're going to think about these like they're tables, but in MongoDB, these are collections. Okay, so let's say we have another user, and then the name is Ched, and then it has ID 2. Okay, we got a whole bunch of users. They're stored in the user collections. Now, like every application, there are relationships. So users are going to have some kind of thing. So to be extremely generic, we're just going to call these items. We're going to call this the item collection. But this could be to-dos, like users have lots of to-dos. You're right, Oscar. A little underscore right there. Users have to-dos. Users have videos. Users have favorite fruits. Items could be literally anything. Users have beers. I'm using the word item just so it's super generic, but like this is how most data is modeled in a database. So let's say CJ has an item. The name for this item is a code mug. Merch.coding.garden. Yeah, this one's not available, but there is one that says code on it. Okay, so it has the name code mug. How can we say that this item belongs to CJ? We have another property on here. Another property that is user ID. Like so. And then here we'll say 1. So now that we've done this, that item is owned by CJ because of that user ID there. And then let's say Ched, let me know what item do you have? Ched has a thing. And then that's going to have a user ID of 2. A cat. Ched has a cat. Great. So using a document store, we basically have set up we have a what's the word, an informal relationship here, right? So we basically say that CJ owns that thing and then Ched owns that thing. But because this is we've written this in a somewhat generic way, let's say we have more items, right? So let's say CJ also has a pin and Ched has an iPhone, and those things could be stored in here, all with user IDs as well. So let's let's add a few more just to show this. So I also have a pin, and then this belongs to me, and then Ched has an iPhone. And to do that, we'll say user ID is 2. Great. Now we have demonstrated that this is a one-to-many relationship, right? Because CJ has a code mug, and CJ also has a pin. We'll use a different color for Ched. So Ched has a cat, and Ched also has a phone. So in the database world, we call this one, two, many, because one user can have many items. It is a one-to-many relationship. I honestly, I think I do want to put an external microphone on. But, okay, so, many, yeah, M-A-N-Y, many. And if you think about this, like if you're modeling a system, it has hundreds of users or thousands of users. All of those users are going to be in here, and then all of the items that they create are going to be in here. And then when we're actually writing the code for the application, like let's say, let's say I want to have a user interface that shows all of the items that CJ owns. I can have a database query that says, give me all of the items where user ID is 1, and it's going to grab those 2, right? So this is a very common thing in databases. Please give me 60 seconds to get a different microphone. I can't find my adapter. I need a I need a cable that goes from here into my mixer. How long has it been? How many seconds do I have left? 30 seconds? So a horse walks into a bar, and the bartender says, our glasses are not ergonomically designed for you. Please leave. Well, you should be able to hear me. You should be able to hear me. I don't get it? Okay, great. Can you hear me better now? I think you can. I stole that joke from Reggie Watts. He does a better job. Look up Reggie Watts. Okay, stick to coding. All right. Can you hear me better at this point? Let me know. What is life? Why the long face? Check. Okay. So to recap, we have a user collection. Users get stored in here. Each user has a unique ID. We have an item collection. Each item gets stored in here, and it gets related back to the user using this user ID property. Now, this is a one-to-many relationship, and I think the whole reason I did this, the whole reason that I drew this out is to show you that even with document collection, so even if you're using like MongoDB or any other NoSQL database that works with collections, you're still going to have relationships of some kind. So in MongoDB, if you were to go and do a thing and try putting an item into this collection with a user ID that doesn't exist. So let's say I try to go put a new item and it has a name of horse. And then let's say I specify a user ID 42. MongoDB, no problem. It's just going to let you insert that thing. And the issue is now like this is like an orphaned document, right? So like there is no user with that ID. Now there are libraries that will prevent you from doing this potentially. Like in the JavaScript world, there's a library called Mongoose. It can potentially prevent you from doing inserts with foreign keys that don't exist in another table. Thanks, Terawad. We're explaining things for the beginners right now, though. So MongoDB would let you do this, right? And the issue is this is just an orphan document. There is no user with that ID. The other thing is you could actually delete one of the users from the database. So let's get rid of Ched. Boom. Ched got deleted from the database. But guess what? All of his items are now still in the database. So I would need a secondary query that would go into the database and say delete all records with that specific ID. Bye, Ched. And I could do that, right? But I would have to write a separate query that says, okay, go in here, delete that one because he doesn't exist anymore, delete that one, right? But I would have to write the code to do that. Now, with a SQL database, these kinds of relationships and these kinds of things that happen when data is deleted are enforced by the database itself. Yeah, so terminal logic is saying that's what stored procedures are for. Sure, yeah, so like, you're right. You could actually write a function that automatically runs on delete that like deletes record, but you'd have to do that yourself. And what's up, Trash Dev? Welcome in. I missed your message. What did it say? We talking about cascading? Yeah, that's what I'm about to get to. So what I just drew out here was what would happen in a document collection like MongoDB, where this stuff isn't enforced. You would have to write application code to enforce this. Now, with a SQL database, these things are enforced. And I guess there's a lot of other things about a document store and like specifically MongoDB that aren't enforced. Like the other thing about MongoDB is it actually doesn't care what data you put in here. So I could actually go into my user collection and throw in an object that has a banana property. And MongoDB doesn't care. Now I did mention there are I do believe in the latest version of Mongo, you can actually set up, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but you can set up a schema that would prevent you from inserting this. But for the longest time, and if you don't set this up, MongoDB actually doesn't care what you put in a collection. And that could create issues in your front end, right? So, or like in your applications, because if your application is depending on anything that comes back from the user collection having a name property, it's going to break the moment it comes across this banana. So these are the limitations of a document store, something like MongoDB. Now, you can get around those limitations, but typically you get around those limitations in application code. You literally have some backend code that stops you from inserting this because it does the validation first. With something like a SQL database, and in our example, Postgres or PostgreSQL, these types of things are enforced at the database level. And Terawatt is saying, why would anyone use a document DB in a simple project that literally doesn't improve performance and just makes things crashable? I think the thing is, like, because it doesn't enforce schemas, like it's, in my experience, really good for rapid prototyping, especially like if you don't know what your schema is up front, because later on you might decide, oh, users don't just have names, they also have avatar URLs, and you can just go in and start inserting users that have avatar URLs, but now you do need to go back and update the rows that don't. But yeah. So, MongoDB is schema-less, or also called a schema-on-read solution, says Tanner Barcelos, meaning you don't need a schema ahead of time like a SQL database. Yeah, so there are reasons why you would want to do this, but in the application that we're building, we know there are relationships, and we're going to design the database up front and think about most of the things. We're going to try to think about all of the things that we would need up front. Cool. So let's talk about how this works in a SQL database. So in a SQL database, you have tables, not collections. So we would have a user table. And I'm actually going to draw out the entity relationship diagram for the thing that we just talked about. So we will have a user. And user has a name. And that is, let's call that text. And then users have an ID. And that is an integer. And that is also the primary key. So what we do when we're working with a SQL database, we design it up front. So we've created a schema here that says a user will have a name that is of type text, and a user will have an ID which is of type integer, and this is the primary key. Yeah, so there would be some other metadata right here that says, like, this is an auto incrementing key. Honestly, another way you might see this written is as auto. It technically is stored as like an integer, but the database automatically assigns that ID for us. Okay, but up front, we have to design that schema. And then when we're ready to insert users, they must adhere to that schema. So when I insert CJ, let's say we have name, we have ID. So if I want to insert a user CJ, that's going to look like this. And then let's say we insert Ched, and that's going to look like this. And then every other user that I insert, like trash, is going to look like that. So we we define our schema first, and then after we've after we've designed it, we can start inserting data like this. And the database will throw errors, right? So if we try to insert a user here where we have like a I don't know, a number for the name or a Boolean for the name, or like the other thing is we can also set up constraints that says the name here is character varying varchar 50. And so what we could say is if you try to insert a user where the name is longer than 50 characters, throw an error. Don't even put that into my database. And so we do that up front. Same thing happens with other collections. So let's go and design the item collection here. So we have item. It's going to have an ID. We're going to call that auto. And this is a primary key. And then it's also going to have a name. This is going to be text, like so. Okay, so up front, we designed our item table. Yeah, I mean, we can. So every SQL database potentially has different types that you can use. In Postgres, the text type is nice because it auto resizes and technically could store unlimited lengths. But you might also use varchar just because if you want to upfront want to say nothing longer than 50 could fit in here. Yeah, little Bobby tables. Okay, so we designed our item table. This is a simple example. These two tables look exactly the same. But like I said earlier, items could be your favorite beers, or to-do items, or Twitch streams, or Twitch messages. Yeah, so varchar is strict, text is potentially dynamic, and not all SQL databases support text, but regardless. So now we have this item table, and we can start inserting items just like we did in our document store. So we have ID, 1, and then the name is code mug. Merch.coding.garden. And choose. Thank you for the prime. If I missed other supports, I'll come back in a second. Okay, and then we have item number 2. Oh yeah, I forgot. And I don't know if anybody caught it, but the way we relate this back to the user table is we have another column here called user ID. This is an integer, and we put FK because this is a foreign key. And we're going to add a foreign key constraint that says any user ID that gets inserted into this table must exist in this table. Yeah. Cool. Wait, what? Why is chat slightly smaller than the cam? Oh, so this is what I woke up at 5 a.m. to do. I mean, I don't know if anybody noticed yet, but look at these little my screens have border radius now. I set that up this morning. Okay, so that's the other part of this schema is we want to enforce this user ID as a foreign key constraint. And we talked about earlier with the item collection that this is actually a one-to-many relationship, that one user can't have many items. The way we draw that with SQL Database, thank you, Oscar, is from our ID column, we can actually draw a line over here, and we have this little thing called a crow's foot, and like that. And so this actually is a one-to-many relationship because one user can have many items. But when I draw the relationship like this, there's actual data definition language and SQL code that I write that adds this constraint that says any row I insert into the item table, that user ID must exist in the user table. Okay, so now getting back to actually inserting data, we're also going to have our user ID. I'm going to shorten it to UID because I'm running out of space. But that's going to be user ID 1. And then there's a cat in here, and that's user ID 2. And then there's also a pin, and that's user ID 1. And then there's also a phone, and that's user ID 2. And this is the data in our database, like this. Okay, now let's talk about the actual database operations here. This mug isn't for sale anymore. This was a one-time thing, but we do have we have this mug. This mug is you can buy. Okay, now let's do the thing that we were talking about earlier. Let's say we wanted to try and insert something into this table, but give it a user ID of 42. So if I write the SQL code that says insert into item, and then specify the values. Name is horse, user ID 42. The database says no, I will not do that, and the database throws an error. The database, because I define the schema and these constraints, the database will literally throw an error that says user with ID 42 does not exist. You cannot insert that data into this database. Good day, sir. Right? So it won't let it happen. Right? The other thing is, and actually I forgot that we have trash in our database, so we could have another item that they have a bin. Trash has a bin, and then that would be user ID 3. Great. Okay. But the other thing is now. Yeah. So yeah. Then we get into more database topics of like. I'm not even going to get into, but yeah, so like what if two different users had a code mug? At that point, we kind of have duplication because we have text in both of those tables. So then we might want to normalize that into like a lookup table of possible items. And then that's too much for now. Let's talk about the scenario where I want to delete Ched from my database. If I did not set up an on-delete cascade constraint, if I attempt to delete Ched, my database will stop me. It'll be like, whoa, you have a foreign key constraint on this table and you have data in this table where the user ID is 2. So I am not going to let you delete that unless you get rid of those things first. So you could write some code that goes in and manually deletes these with user ID 2. Or in the schema definition of this table, you could have an on-delete cascade constraint. Is it a constraint? Yeah, I think it's a constraint. But you could say, if I delete something from this table, no, sorry. This is where the constraint would exist, over in this table. So you have this foreign key, but then you also say on delete cascades. And if you set that up, that will say, if I delete Ched here, the database will automatically cascade that delete over here, and will delete that, and will delete that as well. Anything with user ID 2. And all of that is handled by the database. It's not even a trigger. It is just a constraint on the schema, and the database knows that it needs to delete those things when the related data gets deleted. Now, if I had other tables with the user ID foreign key and I didn't have on delete cascade on those, the database would prevent me from, even though this one has on delete cascade, it would still stop me from doing the deletion of Ched, because it's like, hey, you need to take care of that over here. So you typically have your on-delete cascade over there. Now, this does not get into database design where you do like soft deletes, where you actually like don't want to cascade the delete and don't delete users' data, but this is the scenario where you actually would delete that data. Yeah, and then a rollback is another thing. So in a lot of databases, well, not a lot, all of them, all SQL databases have this idea of transactions. I think MongoDB has transactions as well. But the idea there is you can, when you're attempting to delete something, if something goes wrong, you just roll back those changes. Yeah, and then Josh actually has a good thing here. Another constraint that I would put on this column is not null, because technically I could insert rows into this where the user ID is null, and then that wouldn't make sense, and then some of my queries would break. But that's another constraint you could put on the schema that says user ID cannot be null, and then the database would throw an error if you try inserting something in here where the user ID is null. Yeah, and Shoes is mentioning ACID. ACID is also known as ACID compliance. Let's come back over here. That was fun. Thank you. Thank you for listening to that. Let's look up ACID compliance really quick. Let's see what happens if I put ACID into Wikipedia. Let's look at the disambiguation. And in computing, ACID is atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So SQL databases are not typically, they are ACID compliant. And more recently, though, MongoDB said it is now ACID compliant. But this has to do with like, I don't even know how to talk about this. I'm not going to talk about this. But any thoughts, comments, questions on this diagram that I drew? and the difference between a document store and then also a SQL database. There wasn't. Yeah, come on. Thoughts on ACID is it opens your mind, and I think everyone should give it a try. Can I fax this to you? Yeah, definitely. Can I redo it in fourth normal form? No. I think so. Here's, I guess, I don't have a button for that. What do I want to say? Are people doing the sick command? Because you got to know that I can't think straight. This is why I keep not explaining things. What are we doing? I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about this? That's what we're gonna. Yeah. So people are talking about normal form. I think that's one thing that I'll mention here is in database design, it's possible that you have duplication. Can I write in cursive? Last time I wrote in cursive was like third, fourth grade. Let's try it. Let's pick a nice purple color. I'm gonna do all lowercase. First try. Well, not first try. This is my first attempt at cursive in many years. Look at that. Okay. Let's talk about data normalization. No, that's the same thing my teachers used to tell me. Is like when you get to high school, you're gonna have to write in cursive. Oh man, you can tell. Okay. What I want to do, I honestly was gonna print out some like handwriting practice, because I want to get to a point where I write everything in capital letters. I feel like on a whiteboard and on stuff like this, capital letters are much easier to read. Data normalization. So let's think about this item table over here. Like right now, every name is just text. It's a text value. So like, let's say that trash wanted a mug as well. I'll draw it like this because I'm running out of space. So let's say we want to insert into this table over here, code mug. And then that's user ID 3, and then that gets the ID 6. Like that. Now we have duplication in our database because we have the string code mug right there, and we have the string code mug right there. So let's say our business requirements change, and the name of that thing is now code mug 2. Cod mug? Oh, I did put cod mug. Okay, so technically we don't have duplication. We need an E. Code mug. Call of Duty. Call of Duty mug. Code mug. So let's say now we have 2 rows with the string. So this is a text value code mug. And let's say the CEO of Coding Garden came along and they're like, we need to rename that to code mug 2. Right now, I would have to go in, and every single occurrence of code mug in my database, I would need to change it to code mug 2. And that would be a query like update in item where name equals code mug. Yes. That's the thing. So the idea of normalization is we can actually reduce this duplication by using a lookup table. And so we could actually have a lookup table called like item type. I realize this overflow isn't, just pretend it's still there, but we could have another table called item type. And then this would have an ID, which is auto incrementing, and is a primary key, and then also this would have a name. And this is text. Now, there are different kinds of lookup tables you can have, or like different kinds of lookups you can have. Like one way of doing it is an enum. And I actually have like way less experience with enums in a database. And Bob, thank you for that resub. How many months? 17. Nice. Nice. Yeah. Okay, so item type now becomes a lookup table, and now all unique items get inserted into this table. So, for example, let's just take CodeMug. So now we insert CodeMug, and its ID is going to be 1, and the name is going to be CodeMug. Like so. So now that exists there, and we can also have another constraint. So there's all kinds of constraints you can have in SQL databases, but I could have a constraint on this name column that is a unique constraint. So in this table, CodeMug can only ever exist once. If I try inserting another item type of CodeMug, the database will throw an error and be like, yo, that already exists. So we could have a unique constraint there. And then our schema for the item table changes. So instead of having a name text column, now I realize that, I mean, this is why we use digital tools, because it's so hard to like rewrite this. Very consistent. Look, this is bad. This is bad. I feel like it's like somewhat entertaining and comedic. Like even if you know what I'm talking about, you're at least a little bit entertained by what I'm doing here. I don't know. It actually, it's like slowly devolving. But now we'll update the schema. We no longer have name in the Primogen. Thank you for the raid, the Primogen. I appreciate you. Welcome in, Primogen people. What do you call your people? I'm doing stand-up database design right now. Paper and pen. Also, I'm sick, so I'm laughing a lot. I honestly feel a little bit loopy. I'm a little bit loopy right now. Dgens, welcome Dgen Army. Glad to have you. We're over here designing databases. We're knee deep. We're knee deep in explaining why SQL databases are cool and why. Sorry about that. And why they're better than document collections. So we talked about how in something like MongoDB, they have collections. You throw stuff in there. MongoDB doesn't care if you don't satisfy some schema. And when you're using something like MongoDB or a document store, you end up having relations in your database anyways. Thanks for being here, Raiders. And thank you, the Primogen. Can the mods shout out the Primogen? Yeah, so, and that's basically my main point and why we're talking about this is because if you use MongoDB, you're going to end up with relationships. And we talked about how if I deleted this user, we now have orphaned records over here. And we've already, we're basically implementing a one-to-many. So we're talking about how in a SQL database, all of this is built into the database, and you have all kinds of constraints, and the database is basically working on your behalf to make sure that your data is consistent and has all kinds of built-in validations and stuff like that. And so we talked about how in the example of a SQL database, if I try to insert a horse with user ID 42 in a SQL database, what do I want to say? The database won't let you do that. It'll say, no, you can't do that because there is no user in our user table with the ID 42. And that's because over here, we set up a foreign key constraint that prevents us from inserting bad data. Now we're talking about normalization. So ignore my drawings. Also, this is like one of the first times I'm actually doing drawings on screen. So, and Deathlocker, thank you for that, Prime. What did Prime say? I try to avoid relations in my database. Never makes it work with pleasure. That's good. Okay. What am I talking about? Data normalization. So, in our database, you can see that 2 users have a code mug. Merch.coding.garden. Get yourself a code mug. Both user ID 1, CJ, and user ID 3, Trash, have a code mug. We want to remove that duplication because the CEO of Coding Garden came along and said, hey, we need to rename that to CodeMug2. And in order to do that, you would have had to have written a query that goes through and updates this text everywhere to be CodeMug2. We don't want to do that. We're going to create a lookup table. So now we have this item type table that has a name of CodeMug, and we also set a unique constraint on the name here. So we won't be able to create duplicates. Basically, any new item. I mean, honestly, at this point, we're just building a store. We sell cats, phones, and mugs, and also trash cans. But unique item types would be put into this table, and then now our item schema updates. So we no longer have a name text field. Now we have an item type ID. So item type ID, and that is a foreign key, like this. And so now we can actually draw that relationship like item type. So any one item can have, or any one item type can have many items. This is messy, but at this point, now my database, instead of storing the name, this would actually store the item type ID. I don't want to rewrite any of this, but basically instead of CodeMug, now I literally just put the value 1. This becomes ID. Over here, this becomes 1. I put more stuff in here. This becomes ID 2. This becomes ID 3. This becomes ID 4. This becomes ID 5. And I would have inserted all of those things into my lookup table as well. We're getting messy here. It's fine. But at this point, now I've reduced duplication. So I've basically normalized this to remove the duplication. And my database is more scalable. Let's Excalibur, yeah, I should have used a tool for this, but regardless, maybe you learned. Can you type 1 in chat if you learned something today? Because really, someone asked the question, like, why wouldn't you use MongoDB over something like Postgres? And these are the reasons why. Ultimately, we have consistency, we have constraints, we have all this stuff. Thanks, Terawatt. I mean, at least there's someone. We have all these things built into the database that are going to make sure that our data is consistent, our schema is consistent, all of that good stuff. So where are we at now? Now we're going to actually design our database. So what are we doing? Today, we're working on our app listed. So last time, we came up with some epic user stories. We set up our initial SvelteKit app. And today, we're actually going to design the database. And we're going to be designing the database using this tool called Prisma. And we're going to use Postgres. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And we're going to design our database, but the app that we're working on is an app that will allow users to create, share, and watch lists of YouTube channels. So, for instance, I like to watch cooking channels on YouTube. So I want to create a list of Babbage Culinary Universe, Munchies, Maddie Matheson, The Internet Shaquille, sometimes Bon Appetit, but I want to create a list of those channels, and then I can have a feed that only shows me videos from those specific channels. That's the app that we're going to be building, and then we're going to be designing the database with Prisma now. So we're going to be using Joshua Weissman is a good one. We're going to be using TypeScript. A TikTok watch along. Shout out to the Primogens. Did we already get a shout out to Primogen? I watched his recent video. He was looking at TikTok with Trash Dev and Tej. It was hilarious. I had a good time watching that this morning. So definitely go follow his YouTube channel. The Primogen. Yeah, so we need to set up Docker. We'll do that first. We'll talk about Docker too. Wait. Where'd it go? Didn't that just get published? Am I crazy? Oh, it was from 8 months ago. Wait, no, is that it? He renamed it. Is this killing I see. Okay. This is it. This is it. I was like, where'd it go? Where'd it go? That's it. Yeah, it's really funny. Go watch it. I have a TikTok, but I do not do TikTok humor. I I explain things. I'm on TikTok. I definitely am. But let's set up Docker. Let's set up Docker first, because I'm going to be pointing Prisma at my database in order to create this schema, but I need a database. So some of you in the chat are probably wondering, what is Docker? And I'll tell you now, maybe. we're gonna get through it, but we need to connect to a database. So yeah, okay, let me explain why we need Docker. I don't want to install Postgres on my computer. I don't want to connect to a remote cloud instance of Postgres when I'm running my code locally. I want to connect to Docker locally. Oh, sorry, I want to connect to Postgres locally, and I don't want to have to manage all of the setup. So what we need is a Docker container that has a Postgres database inside of it. So I'm going to search for Postgres Docker, and let's see if we can find, yeah, the official Docker image here. So the Postgres team publishes all the various versions of Postgres. Electrothermal, thank you for that resub. Early work release paired with a coding garden stream. Nice, nice. Thanks for being here. I missed these? Yeah, I think I missed that. Fluffenstein, thank you for the 3 months. And Duck Face Killer, thank you for the 18 months. Appreciate you. Yeah, we're going to use Docker Compose, but this is the image we're going to use. But we're going to use Docker Compose, and for that, we need a Docker Compose.yml file. And so this is going to describe our development environment. Honestly, yeah, oh, look at that. They did it for us. I can just copy paste. I was like, I kind of want to go to a previous project where they've done this before. Docker Compose is basically a configuration that describes all of my services. And Grapeseed, thank you very much for the Prime. All right, what am I saying? This describes our services. So we have a database service. In the example here, they set up adminer. Adminer is like the PHP myadmin of the Postgres world. I don't want that because I have Prisma Studio, so I actually don't need that. But later on, I could go in here and like add a service for my API. I could add a service for, I don't know, Redis. Maybe I have like a session store or something like that. This file is basically describing all of the little pieces in my environment, and one of them is going to be a Postgres instance. So that's all we're going to set up for now, but later on we could come in here and add more services. Image is what tells it to where to get this image from. Right now it just says Postgres, but we can give it a version. We'll do version 15.1. Like, honestly, we could just do latest. I think by default it does this, so it'll grab the latest version of Postgres, even if I don't specify that. But do I want to say 15? Let me know in the chat. What should I do? So if I do latest and then Postgres introduces a new version, and thank you, Andrew the Coder. If I do this, Postgres introduces a new version that has breaking changes. This could potentially break. So it would make sense to like lock it to like 15.1, not 51.1, 15.1, because if there are breaking changes, then we won't have those. So actually, I'm going to go to 15 because that should get minor versions. I think this will work the same way as like npm installs. So I want Postgres version 15. Great. There's some other things that I can specify in here, like a volume. So the thing, oh man, I need to install Docker too. This is a new computer, I forgot. But the thing about Docker images is that they are ephemeral, meaning you spin them up, you spin them down, and then it's like they could spin back up and not have, they're brand new, like every time, potentially. But if I mount a volume, I can make it so that if I like insert stuff into my database, the next time I spin up this container, it has all of that data to resume from. So I definitely want to set up a PG data volume as well, like these. And I can just put it in my local directory. I like to create a thing called Docker data. And so that'll create a folder, and then all of the data and stuff for Postgres internally is going to get put into that folder. Yeah, and good point, Josh. Yeah, and that's another cool aspect about something like Docker or the Docker Compose is ideally 5 years from now, I could spin this up and not have to worry about finding all the specific dependencies and stuff for Docker. This should just work. So yeah. We also have a Postgres password. I'm going to pull this in from my environment. I think this is the root password. Let's see what it says in here. The only variable required is Postgres password. This sets the super user password for Postgres. The default super user is defined by the Postgres user environment variable. Cool. So we'll pull that from our environment. We also want the user. All of this I'm going to pull from my .env, so that way when I write application code to connect to this database, it'll pull it from the same place. So I want Postgres user. Let's do Postgres database. Like this. And then seems fine, right? What's up, Ian Roos? Welcome in. I think this is it. This is all I need. So I also want these things to exist in a .env. Let's see what's in here. Nothing. Great. Oh yeah, so yeah, I'll try to fix that. So, DB. Oh, I can name this whatever I want. So yeah, actually, I do want to call this DB user, and then DB name, like this. This is what I want. So these three things are going to come from my environment. Docker will automatically read from a .env. And so I can put these in here and then specify their values. So I can do something like this. User, we'll call this. So the name of our app is listd. So we'll come up with a user. This is my break timer. Feel free to take a stretch. And then we'll come up with the name of our database. In this case, I'll just call it listy. If you saw in the documentation, I actually didn't need to specify these two things, but eventually when I deploy this in the real world, these things are going to be different, so I like to separate them out because of that. So we can define those there. When Docker spins up, it's going to pull those in. I think this is all we need. Let's install Docker. You're right. I need beverages. Mac OS install Docker Community Edition. Can I not install it from brew? Oh well, I'll just download it. $500 terabytes. Yeah, it just says double click it. Let's do it. Podman? I've never used Podman. I'm going to stick with Docker because I know it. And these days I'm really adverse. I mean, maybe it's I'm getting old. Maybe it's I'm tired of dealing with things that don't work. I'm going to use the things that I know because they work. So it's a drop-in replacement. Okay. I have people have mentioned it before. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, because like Docker requires you have a license for it. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. I'm installing Docker right now. It was really just a matter of downloading it, dragging it to applications. Accept the terms. It's going to do some stuff. Fascinating. That was really seamless. All right, it's installed now. So now I should be able to spin this up. So I defined this Docker Compose. I say what image I want. I gave it some environment variables. I specified what volume it should use. It should work. Nobody in chat is yelling at me or telling me that something's gonna go wrong. So let's just try it. So what I can do at this point is Docker Compose up, and that will do it. So by pulling, it actually needs to pull down this Postgres image. So it's gonna pull that down, and then it's just gonna start up. You miss Comedy Garden. Oh, ports. Yeah. So it's going to use the default port, 5432. But later on, like when we deploy, we're going to want to pull those into environment variables as well. Because like whatever we use for deployment may or may not use 5432 as the port number. Yeah. It should work for now. But also, so yeah, the database is up. At this point, we can start working on our Prisma schema, and it's going to be doing stuff against this specific database. I'm going to kill it for now, and do Docker Compose down, just to make sure it's all dead and down. And I'm not opposed to pulling in the port variable. What do you mean Shibas, Terawatt? Like the dog, like a Shiba Inu? Oh, you're totally right. Yeah. So expose the port. Maybe that's what people meant. And so yeah. So when I start this up, Docker creates a network that only can access other things within that network. So technically, when I spun this up, I actually couldn't connect to it externally. And by externally, I mean just the application running on my computer. So really, what I want to do is I want to expose. We'll pull in the DB port from 5432. So that says take the port inside the container 5432 and expose it as this database port, and this is what I'll put in my .env. So in my .env, 5432 is fine because that port isn't used on my machine. If I also had Postgres installed, I would want to choose a different port, so it would be exposed over a different port. Oh, the sheep. The sheep. I totally forgot, Terawatt. I think it'll be more interesting if we try to do some like Kubernetes stuff, because I'm pretty sure the Shibas has a lot of experience with that. Honestly, it would be fun to have her on stream to audit my Docker stuff as well. Did I change the variable name? Should be fine, right? That's really funny, Terawatt. I didn't know what you were saying. Let's get into the Prisma aspect of this. So we've got the Postgres thing. Great. Let's go into the docs now. Honestly, I'm very new to Prisma. I've only done basic things, and here we go. So Prisma specifically wants a database URL. I'm curious. DB name is out of sync. Good call. Good call. Yeah, really good call. Yeah, I did the wrong thing there. I don't know if I pressed like Command Z or whatever else. One thing is you can see that Docker data got created. So this is where it's putting all of the stuff to deal with my database. I think because I put the wrong database name, I'm actually just going to wipe that out. So I'm going to remove Docker data. Just remove that entire folder. The next time I spin up the container, it doesn't have any previous state to go from, so it should use that DB name. The other thing is, while I'm thinking about it, in my gitignore, I want to put DB data, because I don't want to push all of that Postgres stuff up to my my repo. That stuff gets recreated locally. I do not want to push that to GitHub. Okay, how we doing? How we doing? Git pull. Oh, good call. Yeah, I'm gonna have a Oscar knows. I'm gonna have a merge conflict. Or no, I have uncommitted changes. Okay. There we go. You're right. Docker data. This, yeah, it's not DB data, it's Docker data. Thank you. Git ignore that. Okay, in the env I put the wrong DB URL. Yeah, this needs to be updated now. So last time we had our basic... I'll leave the code up for a second because as is mentioned, I'm a little loopy today, so I'm probably going to miss a lot. But I think my environment variables are good. That's good. But previously with Prisma, we just did a basic setup here. And right now the provider is SQLite. I want to swap that out so that the provider is Postgres. So let's see how to do that. Provider, Postgres. Great. Database URL needs to be something that looks like this. Now, I want to avoid having duplicate data here, right? Because I have the DB user, I have the DB password. I honestly, I want to find, and also DB host is just going to be localhost. I want to find a way to take these environment variables and use them in my Prisma file instead of having to duplicate them, right? Because I could recreate this by putting the values in, but I don't want to do that. So if anybody knows how to do that, please let me know. Because otherwise, like every time this stuff changed, I'd have to update it in both places. I'm curious if in the schema file, do we have the ability to access multiple like can I do string concatenation in the Prisma schema file? Yeah, append the env vars in the Prisma config. How? Is it just a plus sign? I haven't run into that issue with Docker yet. Parse the UI with the native URI with the native URL package. The issue is in here inside of a Prisma schema file. I don't think I have access to JavaScript or anything like that. Like, kind of what I want to do is in here, I need to access multiple envs, right? So like I need an env for DB user. And then an env for DB password. And then like, can I just concat strings in here? I don't think I can. And then like, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I don't think this is YAML. Wait. Is Prisma schema YAML syntax? You can use $ in the .env file. Okay. The thing is, if I do that, I'm going to have to find a way to get that also working in my Node environment or my my actual app, which is SvelteKit. Doesn't look like it. So I'll try doing, yeah, I think, actually, no, you're right. This is just straight up Unix variables, right? Or like shell variables. That should work, huh? This is not possible right now. This was 2 years ago. Yeah, so basically Prisma is saying you can't do this in the schema file. I think that's fine. If we could do this, and then over here in the .env, we can just do in shell $ references some other variable. Like, we should probably define these first so that they get loaded in, ideally, and then put each of those values within the string here. Now, is this the right syntax for creating a string in this case I'm in Z shell, but also like in bash, that has multiple variables in it? right? So I want to take all of these, create the string out of it. Isn't there a docker compose config command? Yeah, so this tells me, and this will expand out my environment variable. So just to check, let's see if docker connection URL banana just testing. Let's see if docker pulls in the right value here. Add double quotes around it. Let's see. Database URL. Yeah, so Docker is expanding it, which is good. I'll be curious if Node.js expands it or if like Prisma expands it. But let's see. Prisma will probably complain if it doesn't. So yeah. Oh, good call me. Hi, Andre. Yeah, good call. Z-shell. I leaked my database password. It's fine. Super secret. Okay, so that seems like it's working. At this point, we've got a database. We have a way of connecting. Well, we should test the connection now. So let's start up the database. We'll start the database, and then just as a test, we'll try to run the current Prisma configuration against it. So if I do npx Prisma migrate, we need to look at the docs. I need a migrate dev. Like, I need to run these migrations against the database. Yeah. And this is what I was worried about. The provided database string is invalid port number and database URL. Migrating would essentially just attempt to create a user table in the database. But let's look at it. Thank you, Revolt. Prisma looks for .env files. Expanding variables. Variables stored in .env can be expanded using this format. Man, okay, we'll do this, but does Docker support that same format? Man. I'm curious if Docker supports this format as well. It does. Yeah. Okay, so that's apparently a standard format. This is the part of dev they don't tell you about. Configure. Yeah, it's all. It's been days configuring things. Okay, so yeah, seems fine. So we can, if we do this, now Prisma should like it, and it should work. The data source provider Postgres specified your schema does not match the one specified in the migration lock. Please remove your current migration directory and start a new migration history with Prisma migrate dev. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. So before, we generated these migrations using SQLite, and that's fine. I'm just going to straight up delete this entire folder. And this dev.db was a SQLite file. That's fine, because we're switching from SQLite to Postgres. So now it should work. It's the literal standard. All right, I've never seen that syntax. So enter a name. I'm gonna call it initial. Awesome. And then your database is now in sync with the schema. So now if I do Prisma Studio. So Prisma Studio is a tool that comes from Prisma that, look at that. So we're actually looking into our Postgres database right now, and it has a user table. So it's working. It's fine. I'm going to delete it. I spelled initial wrong, but I'm just going to delete it anyways, because now that we know that they're connected, we can take what we learned about databases and implement it here in this file. And for now, I'm literally just going to delete that migrations folder, because we're going to create a new one. All right, everybody, let's design a database. Here we go. So eventually we are going to have an auth system, and now we're done with the easy stuff, the hard stuff. So the repo isn't a mono repo because it's only SvelteKit. So SvelteKit is going to have everything. It's going to have our database, our front end code, our back end code. This is just going to have everything in it. So for this app, we don't really need a mono repo. After 2 hours, we can start designing the database. Yeah, everything we need is in this one repo. So for now, I'm going to leave the user table bare because this is going to have to change. Once we figure out how we're going to integrate auth, we'll have to update this schema to allow for sessions, social auth profiles, like your Google profile, that kind of thing. For now, let's just add a to-do right here. Social auth tables. We'll just say auth tables because we're going to need a session table, a social we're going to need a bunch of stuff for it, but we're not going to worry about that right now because we're going to design the rest of the database. Because picking an auth solution is going to be an entire stream in and of itself. There is this thing called auth.js. We tried it, and it's a little bit broken. So I'm going to delay trying it again as long as possible so that hopefully they've fixed the issues by then. In the meantime, we're not even going to think about that, and we're going to design the rest of the database. So our app is an app that allows users to create, watch, and share lists of YouTube channels. This is what we can do, lists of YouTube channels. So you would think we need a channel list model, right? So a list of channels. And then that is going to have an auto-incrementing ID. If it's not a mono repo, what is it then? A monolith? No, that's different. It's just a repo. It's just a plain old repo. All right, so this model is going to represent each list that a user can create, right? So I'm going to create a list, and then I'm going to give it a name of like cooking channels, like this. So name will be cooking channels, and I probably also want to give it a description. All of my favorite cooking channels. And then this is going to need timestamps on it. So I want to create it at date and an updated at date. I guess you're right. It is a mono repo because it is one repo. Why limit it to channels? I see what you're saying. I think in an effort to simplify things, we're going to assume that this is only the only thing we're ever, for the most part, we're going to assume this is the, so the thing is, once we start thinking about not just YouTube channels, Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts, Twitch channels, Twitter accounts, things get much more generic and honestly a bit more complicated. So you're right. We could just call this. Actually, we could come up with some. We could come up with domain-specific terms. So we could just call it list. That's very generic. We like complicated. Yeah, let's get complicated. The beauty of an ORM like Prisma is that it's going to be much easier to do complex relationship queries and stuff like that. So it's not necessary. Like, I don't know if I would think of this like a playlist though, because think about it like this. Like, I'm going to have all of these channels in here, but it's the thing that the user ends up watching is not the list of channels. It's the videos that belong to those channels. Specify my DB name. let's see. Honestly, like, I'm not opposed to just letting Prisma do what it does and like make the decisions about column names and stuff like that. In the past, I am a bit more opinionated about, like, I like my column names to have underscores. I don't like camel casing. In my column names, in my code, of course, I like camel case. Okay, but let's think about this. So, do we want to call this a list? Do we want to call this a, like, what are the other things? So on YouTube, it's called a channel, right? On Instagram, it's just called an account. On TikTok, you all are gonna have to help me because I actually don't use a lot of. I've never used track.tv. On Twitter, yeah, Instagram profile, TikTok profile, Twitter user. And on Reddit, I actually want like a subreddit. But you also could create a collection of Reddit users. And this could be like all the posts that those specific users make. So can I suggest you use Lucid for a visual diagram? we're gonna stick to this schema here. There is a visual designer that'll show us the schema as we create it. Prisma ERD. Like, this is one. You pass in a schema and then it shows you a diagram. I found another one this morning. I guess the other thing is you could have yeah, like medium, or like let's just say like a blog author. So what I'm trying to think of is, what is a generic term that will encapsulate all of these things? Is it Prisma Builder? Collection, feed. I like feed. Yeah, so I like feed. Yeah, you're totally right. So this is a feed that is, and again, like, we're thinking about this. We're thinking about how our startup is going to eventually expand to accept all of these kinds of things. Today, and the MVP, the minimum viable product, is just YouTube channels. So I am creating a YouTube channel feed. I like that. Yeah, first person to say that I think was Redkill. Thank you, Redkill. Limos also said feed. These are feeds, because a feed has a name like cooking channels, and then a description of all my favorite cooking channels, and then what I'm going to have now is a feed item, which in this case are going to be YouTube channels. We'll have probably like an enum or a lookup of type, and right now the only type we're going to have is YouTube channel, but in the future we can add Instagram account, TikTok profile, Twitter user. That will be the different types for the thing. So we have ourselves a feed item, and we can say that a feed has many items, and this is a feed item array. Like that. Let's talk profit share. I don't know. And that was actually super interesting. So you'll notice that I put this here. What this actually relates to is a foreign key relationship. So this will actually, this actually means that one feed can have many feed items. And then you can see that when I did the format with Prisma here, it automatically added back that relationship, because if you think back to our insane database design here, this is like the user ID column, the foreign key that relates it back. And so the Prisma formatter automatically added this feed ID property so that every feed item relates to a specific feed. Yeah. What else am I doing? Okay, let's think about, so this is good. This is good. Thank you. We're working things out. So we have a feed. A feed can have many items. Each item, I don't think it needs, I mean, I guess it could have a description. I'm open to that. Yeah, welcome in, Sam Strife. Glad to hear it. Yeah. I'm live. And my calendar says I'm live, so. Yeah, so that's basically what happened. Watch this. This I can demonstrate it again. If I get rid of that foreign key thing, I add this here to say that one feed can have many items or feed items. And then if I run Prisma format, it knows that it needs to add that, so I don't have to manually add that. Okay, feed should have an owner. Yeah, so the person actually, the feed got created by a specific user. So we'll have like creator. And this is of type user. That's actually beautiful that I don't have to know all of the syntax for that. Like I literally just put creator user. It now adds a field called user ID so that it can reference back to the ID column on user. This is beautiful. This is an ideal database design scenario. Like I don't even have to think about the specifics. Yeah. I think I probably want like this though. Let's see how it, yeah, it actually doesn't care about the formatting. I like the related things to be next to each other. Like this. Just a second. Prisma is made for lazy devs. The thing is like, I mean, I think all developers are lazy. Like, the things that we do over and over and over again, we don't want to have to worry about the details. And this is something where I don't want to have to worry about the details because I know how to do a foreign key relationship. And I could look at their docs, but it's nice that they do it for me. Yeah, and Albert Last is saying, why choose auto-incrementing instead of UUID? This is a decision that you can make, right? So a lot of people say don't use auto-incrementing IDs because you could potentially have an attack on your system where someone just enumerates all of the possible IDs to get access to all of the possible users, right? And so right now we're just talking about the database. We're not talking about the actual API and implementation. And so eventually, let's say I have a profile page for a user and the URL is user/1, user/2. Some would say you don't want that because then you could leak all of your users. Well, this is going to be a social platform, so users are going to be, you're going to be able to go to people's profiles. We potentially will have like some other model here like profile, and then profile could have something like public, and then this could be a Boolean. And then, I mean, this would need I'm going to delete this because I don't want to think about this too much right now. But you could do something like this, right? And then we would have application code that would prevent a user from being visited or enumerated if we tied it back to this profile that says is it public or not. Now, what Iba is saying, it's not only attack UUIDs are more portable between different environments. Sure. I will say, like, in all my years, I've built a lot of apps. I used to work at a consultancy. Not once did we use UUIDs. We always just use auto-incrementing IDs. And basically, the application code prevents any kind of enumeration if you want to, if things shouldn't be enumerable. I see what you're saying, though. Like, well, actually, I don't even know if I see what you're saying. Like, what does it mean to be portable between environments? Like, if eventually these users were getting stored in some other type of database or something like that? Yeah, and I think that's another thing Oscar is mentioning. When I implement this app, you're not going to be able to go to user/1. Users are going to have a username. Let's actually update this to be username, and this is going to be unique across the system. Yeah, and again, I don't know much about the specifics here of like what's better for performance. I know that auto-incrementing IDs work. This is automatically indexed, so I can look up by ID. I mean, you can have a UUID that is indexed as well, but I don't know. What's the difference between UUID and GUID? I don't know. GUID is global unique identifier. I think a GUID is a type of UUID. I see what you're saying. Migrate to another system. And then UUIDs are automatically unique so that they would not interfere with each other. Yeah, so that's the thing about auto-incrementing IDs is you do have to worry about, like with database seeds and stuff like that, you do have to worry about, yeah, they don't conflict, they don't collide. But if it's auto-generated and then you're importing it to another system where it's auto-generated as well, you could run into issues if you try inserting it with the ID to begin with. I see what you're saying. I'm not going to worry about that, and I think IDs are just fine. So, in the future, if we need to migrate systems, we're just going to rewrite the whole code base anyways, because, I don't know, a year from now, is FeltKit still going to be the thing people use? I don't know. We want this to be unique. And Von Silvenstein, thank you very much for that, Prime. Let's look up unique in the Prisma docs, because somebody just said do this. Unique. Apparently that's how you do it. I want to find this in the docs though. Let's see. Prisma schema data model. Constraints. Yeah, so I mean, we can look at these examples here. That's going to do that though. There. Can you start auto-incrementing at, let's say, 10,100? You can, and I've done this in the past, because like if you seed your database with a bunch of predetermined IDs, then you need to update the start of the next incremented ID to match what you manually inserted. So that is another thing as well. I've never used hash IDs, no. I can imagine, Kava, as this gets more complicated, this file is going to get real big. That's where the UUID, because you wouldn't have to reset the auto-incrementing ID. I get it. But also, this seems fine. I will bite the bullet and write the migration code if we ever move across to some other system. So yeah. Username is going to be unique. And if you think about, like, right now we're just designing the database, but eventually there's going to be, like, an onboarding flow, right? Where the user signs up, they need to set their username. Usernames need to be unique because I want to be able to have profiles that have the user's name. So, like, on TikTok, tiktok.com/@username, I want to have an experience like that in my app. So every user should have a unique username. No two users can have the same one. All right. The other thing is I want to make sure some of these columns are not null. How do I do that? Required fields are represented via not null. Okay, so how do I do a required? Oh, automatically they are required. If I want to make something not required, like let's say description, I put a question mark on it, similar to like TypeScript. Yeah, so description will not be required. It can be null. Everything else, like name of the feed item. Great. I got distracted, but we were looking for a tool for visualizing Prisma entity relationship diagrams. Earlier today, I found a GitHub issue where somebody linked few different tools. There's like a there's one called. Let me look on my search history here because there's we also need feed type because that's going to tie into this. But let me get or not type. Feed item has a type. But let me figure out what this tool is called real quick. Prismalizer. Yeah. Okay. So. Wow. This is cool. this is cool. Cool. Yeah. So this is our entity relationship diagram. We have a user. That user can have many feeds. They drew this backwards. This should be one to many, not one to many in the other direction, but that's fine. Right? Yeah. What does copy link do? Oh, yeah, it just base 64 encodes the schema there. Yeah, this relationship is the wrong way. The way you know the way the direction that this crow's foot should go, it should go from the primary key to the foreign key. So ID, the foreign key here is user ID. So the crow's foot would be pointing at user ID because one user can't have many feeds. Pet peeve is with Prisma is it's too generalized. I just want the Postgres docs. Yeah, I think that's one of the issues with trying to be a general solution. I mean, they do have like this Postgres section, but you're probably right that like all the Postgres specific things like data types and anything else Postgres specific is going to be harder to find. So yeah. All right. Let's make an enum. Let's look up enums in their data model. Defining enums. Role like this. So what I want is a feed item type. And for now, we're just gonna have a YouTube channel. Do I want it to be camel cased? Yeah, I mean, Prismalizer, like, I don't think, let's see. I was going to say, like, I don't think you can go the other direction. Like, yeah, you can't go diagram to code, but if you put your code in, it gives you the diagram. And then this thing that I found, is this the right one? Oh, no, this is actually a plugin. This is super interesting. You add this as a plugin to your Prisma schema, and it will actually generate this diagram. But this, I believe, is based on this. Let's actually see what it does with our schema here. So if I throw this schema in, yeah, the direction is right in this diagram. So one user can't have many feeds. One feed can't have many feed items. So this is another tool that you could use. But both of these tools are schema first. You can't do create the diagram and then go backwards to the schema definition. I couldn't find it, but there's an issue open on the Prisma GitHub repo where they're talking about they want to add that tool eventually. Do Prisma enums reflect in the DB, or are they just the application? They're in the database, yeah. So Postgres has an enum type. Enum? So Postgres, this is built in. I don't know about other databases, but in Postgres, you can have basically a lookup table. We talked about this earlier with the item type table. The solution where you create your own lookup table, I think, makes more sense if new things need to be added to the system by your end users. So in the example of our schema, if you were here earlier when we were talking about that, item type, imagine an admin interface where they could go in and, oh, we need a new type of blue cup, or we need a new type of left-hand vertical mouse. The end users of the system want to be able to add it in. If you were to use an enum type, every new thing would need a database update to add that thing to the enum. In this case, I think it makes sense because our end users of the application are not creating new feed item types. This is going to be set in stone, and anytime we add a new one, so like right now, we're starting off with YouTube channels, but eventually, if we have an Instagram profile, we're going to literally go in and write the code to do that, and then start adding the features for that. YouTube can change their name tomorrow, and it'll be a bad day for us. Yeah, but I don't know. Okay, so now feed item has a type, which is of type feed item type. So think about it like this. I have a feed. I'm going to call it my favorite cooking channels, or call it cooking channels. The description is all of my favorite cooking channels. The creator is me because I have an entry here and then I created it. And then I go in and I want to add a new item to that list. So I'm going to add the Babish Culinary Universe. So I give it a name, Babish Culinary Universe. I give it a description. The item type is YouTube. Now we need some platform-specific information. And this is where actually I think we'll pull this into a separate table. And maybe instead of adding the type here, we'll put it in a separate table. Because what I'm thinking of is eventually we want features where we can say, show me every list where the Babish Culinary Universe is in that list, right? And show me every user that has the Babish Culinary Universe in that list. I need to come up with a name that's shorter. Babish Culinary. You suck at cooking? All the names are long. Anybody know a cooking channel where the name is not long? Munchies. Munchies is one, right? Food. Food. Munchies. So give me every list where Munchies is in that list, or give me every user that has Munchies in one of their lists. And so what I'm thinking is, we technically could store Munchies here, but then it would be duplicated a lot. So we need a separate place to store, in this case, YouTube channels, so that way we can relate them everywhere else. So let's create another model. This is going to be media? We have to come up with a name. Like, this is a feed item metadata. Yeah, like, technically you could just search everywhere where, like, the name of the channel, but this is getting into normalizing the database, where basically we store all of the channels in a separate, I guess I like feed item meta. I like that because it will have a type. It'll have an auto incrementing ID. And then it'll have a name, but then we need something to link it back to what it actually is. So we'll have something like origin URL, I guess. So the name here would be Munchies, and then the origin URL would be that. And that way we know where to get that information from it. Why the blank lines? I just like the spacing. I don't know. I think if I run this through the if I run this through the Prisma formatter, it would probably remove those blank lines. But now that I have this, each feed item, instead of having a type, it's actually going to have a feed item meta. So we'll have the And 48th Ronin, thank you for that Prime. I guess, do we call it meta? But then this links back to this other table with feed item meta. And then if I run the formatter, it'll add that feed item metadata ID column here. Yeah, and then feed ID, I do not want this to be optional. Like for every item, feed item, it must belong to a feed ID, and it must have a feed item meta ID. Yeah. Do I need the format of the media, like image, video? So right now, yeah, so we can think about that. Like right now, the way that I've designed this so far is it's just the URL. But we could get more in depth than that, right? So we could basically say, like we potentially want the channel ID. How do I get the channel ID? Sometimes if you click on the channel, instead of getting YouTube's updated the UI. Now they're showing you usernames, but we could have like channel ID. I like that idea, Oscar. So we have origin URL, but then we also have metadata, which is a JSON type. And then this will be free form. I wince because it's like, okay, this is the reason this is the reason we're using a SQL database is we don't want free form data. But once we start adding multiple types of things, right? So right now we have YouTube. Eventually when we add Instagram, its JSON data is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, so there will be no type safety on this. I think for now, let's do this. So we have feed item type, and that's going to be something like, right now the only option is YouTube channel. Instead of origin URL, let's call this origin ID and make it a string. Because then we can have application code that says when the feed item type is YouTube channel, we know what to do with the origin ID. And the origin ID is just going to be @munchies. Zod. Yeah, I mean, and then technically, if we did have that JSON column type, we could create Zod types for the, like, if the item type is YouTube, then use this type. But I kind of like this a little bit better, because if the item type is YouTube channel, the origin ID will need to be a YouTube channel name. We probably, either it's going to be a YouTube channel name or a YouTube channel ID. Does anybody know how I can find the YouTube channel ID? That's not, so that's like YouTube is in a transitionary period because we used to have usernames, now we have tags, but we also have channel IDs. Here we go. That's not it. So we haven't even gotten to video URLs, because what we're designing right now is the ability to create a feed that has multiple feed items, which is going to be multiple channels. So right now it would just be Munchies, and then Babish Culinary Universe, and then Maddie Matheson. So each of those is it's just the channel, right? We don't even have video URLs at this point. At this point, I mean, I haven't thought about how we're going to implement this, but basically there will be backend code that takes all of these origin IDs, or like usernames or channel names, and then calls the YouTube API to get all of the latest videos by those specific creators. Wasn't it displayed right below the channel name? No, I'm just thinking of it's like a big long string. I don't even know how to get to it anymore. But I think, like, at this point, once we start looking at the YouTube API documentation, oh, no worries, Ibaldi. Yeah, I'm okay with slow mode because I'm moving slow, so it takes me a second. But yeah, list channel by ID. I think this is the other thing, is like, if I'm gonna list videos by user ID, list videos by ID. I want to be able to list videos by channel ID. We have video category. And we might have to do like a search. But I mean, the only reason I'm looking at this is because that's going to determine what we actually store here. Is it the YouTube username, or is it the channel ID, which is like a string of sorts with a bunch of characters in it? But I don't think that matters at this point. I already bought listed.tv. That one's mine. It doesn't matter at this point, because if we just call it a string, we can put whatever we want in there depending on our requirements. Either the YouTube username or the YouTube channel ID. And I think the Revolt is making a good point. Usernames can change, so it's likely that we will actually want to store the YouTube channel ID. And we can get that from the API. Yeah, so list by YouTube username to get back the ID, and then we'll store the ID in our database. So let's see what we have so far. Let's see what database. We haven't done much, but we have a user. They can have a feed. A feed has many items. An item has many metas. And it's interesting that enums don't get listed out in this diagram. Where's that Prismifier? Prismalizer. Oh, there we go. It listed as like a little enum. I don't like that it doesn't have auto layout. Yeah, but this is our database so far. Enum. I used to say enum all the time, and then people started saying enum. What's up, JC Swazo? Yeah, we're doing database design for an app that will allow users to create lists of YouTube channels. And I mean, we're kind of there, right? So like, we've got lock, fit view, increase, decrease. That's it. That's all we got. I mean, this is a good start of a tool. I don't know how long this thing has been around, but it seems nice. Feels like you could use this as a base to also go the opposite direction, right? Like, use the UI designer to create a table that automatically generates your schema. All right. At this point, do we have everything we need? I'm thinking about, so like when a user goes to add something, there'll be a UI where they can just search for YouTube channels. It'll have results. When they click on a channel, we'll potentially insert that into our database, into the meta table. And then we'll link it via its meta ID. So that seems fine. Active status. Yeah, so like right now, all we're storing is the YouTube channel ID and the fact that it's a YouTube channel. But eventually, we could also we're gonna be able to store other types of things. And I think you're totally right. Like, does it still exist, or is it still active? Oh yeah, timestamps. Thank you, Joshua. I was thinking about that last night. I keep calling you Josh. I'm pretty sure you don't like it. I'm sorry, Joshua. Last video. Oh, okay, yeah. So there are other aspects of the system. I mean, are you thinking of like a user's watch history? Because that's another thing that we could potentially model. Just don't call me Sally, okay? How would you police whether a channel is active or not? Just by calling the YouTube API. Like, if we try to load, if we call the API with a given channel ID and they respond with, hey, that doesn't exist anymore, then we would try to mark it here. Yeah, and so this is, I don't know if you're getting at this exactly, Oscar, but the other thing we could store are the elements of a given feed item meta. So this stores a YouTube channel, but what about all the videos on that channel? Do we want to put that in our database? Or do we just depend on the YouTube API to give us back those anytime we're showing a feed? I think eventually we want those in our own database, at least the, like, not the videos themselves, but like the video ID, maybe stats, like number of views at the time it was pulled in, that kind of thing. Because eventually, so I think initially we won't, right? We're just going to call the YouTube API. But if you think about scale, if you think about eventually we have 1,000 users and 1,000 users are all trying to list their feed, we now have 1,000 queries to the YouTube API every time they load that page. In that case, we potentially would want to like either cache the YouTube responses or look in our own database first and kind of like sync our database via the YouTube API. I don't know, Joshua. I might have to look at their terms of service to see. But that's what we're thinking about right now, Sonny, is if we only call the YouTube API, eventually we're going to get rate limited. Eventually they're going to be like, yeah, you've called us too much, or eventually we meet our quota and then the app breaks. So we will have, I think we're going to think about this later, but this is a problem we do need to solve, and we could solve it in multiple ways. Honestly, I think the easiest way is to cache the YouTube API responses. So I don't know if something like this already exists, but we might end up building it where we have like a caching layer where instead of calling the YouTube API directly, we call our caching layer, which caches YouTube API responses for like an hour or 30 minutes or something like that. And I was thinking about that too, America 2050. Like, if you just create multiple API keys, is it a limit per account or is it a limit per API key? Yeah, if we're storing all of the YouTube stuff in our own database, absolutely it would get really big. Yeah. Yeah. Redis. Yeah, we could cache the API responses in Redis. Okay. I think, honestly, like, obviously, this is a fairly simple database. Nothing too complex yet. But it will get more complex because I think this is a good MVP. Like, we could build an app just around this. But once we start wanting more features, like users' watch history, commenting, like have our own comment system outside of YouTube, that kind of, like, that'll be more stuff. But I think for now, this is probably good. We do want to add timestamps, though. Created at. Yeah, I want something like this. I was thinking about this too, Joshua. Like, you could deploy it in a way where it's like, if you want to use this app, you got to put in an API key. Well, you'd have to put it in like a client ID and a client secret. That'd be really funny. Initially, we won't do that, but I think like at a certain point, we're going to be hitting API limits, so we'll have to think about that. We want timestamps on all of our tables. So we want a created at and an updated at. Now, I'll look into it, but I don't think there's a nice, easy way to do this with Prisma. As in, there's not like a decorator I can use to just automatically add those columns. Users can share and copy lists. Yes, yes. Have a base model? Can we do that with the Prisma schema? Quick stretch. Welcome in, I am Dan. Welcome in. I'm glad you found me too.
All right. Base model. Timestamps. Any Prisma experts in the chat? Yeah, I mean that's how I would do it in Entity Framework as well. You have a base model, extend from that base model. Ultimately, we might just have to copy paste this to all of our models. It's not the end of the world. Don't I want? Is that not what this is? Updated it? Tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm almost at my limit. I think after we get this, we'll run the schema against the database, and then I might have to end it there. Use the top of page search. I see you later, Joshua. Thank you for hanging out. Any soft deleters? I guess that's another thing is we could add a deleted at. This is a way that you implement soft deletes, where when you delete something, you actually don't remove it for your... why do I need the at? Oh! Didn't know that was built in. That's awesome. Cool. That's like an automatic trigger. I see. Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking is, and then I just do... Yeah. What I was thinking is we make it, when you insert it, it should be the current date, because when it was created and updated, that's the same thing. But then when you update it, you'd have to write a trigger, or you'd have to manually update that column. But apparently this is built in. That's really cool. Let's look in the Prisma docs for updated at. Automatically stores the time when a record was last updated. If you do not supply a time yourself, the Prisma client will automatically set the value. Well, I don't know if we're going to go down this route. This complicates things, because instead of having standard deletes, you now need to update all of your deletion code to set this date instead of removing it. And then we need to, all of our application code would have specific queries to make sure that deleted at is null. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Or do I want to do that? I don't know. You can do it without the... Oh, cool. Yeah. No parentheses needed. So by doing this thing called soft deletes. Soft deletes are where instead of actually deleting it, you just set the deleted at. Yeah. Now, on the surface, it's soft deleted. It's soft deleted. And so, yeah, there would be no default, and you would make it nullable, because by default, deleted at is null. And then when you want to delete something, instead of removing it from the database, you set deleted at to the current time. If you do that, yeah, so that's what Limewoods is saying. It's not GDPR compliant. You still need to be able to do hard deletes, right? So if somebody wants their data removed from your system, you still need to be able to remove that. Yeah, so you can do soft deletes in multiple ways. Like, you can also have deleted at, or like, is deleted. And then this is just a Boolean. Or you have a date time. It's a pain. It's more work. We're not going to do soft deletes. But it is something you should know about and think about in database design. Yeah, and like, that's another aspect of soft deletes is, so you do a soft delete first, and then you maybe have a cron job that runs once a month or every few days to permanently delete things that have been soft deleted for a certain amount of time. Is it really deleted? Because, like, one of the reasons you implement this is for, like, to prevent catastrophic failure. Like, a user accidentally deletes something, and then they call up the support. They're like, I accidentally deleted this. Well, we have soft deletes, so we'll bring that data back. But yeah, we're gonna do hard deletes. All right, I didn't find anything. Let's search for like timestamps. It's like it's like a staging area, a recycle bin, and then when you're ready, you can wipe it out if you really want to. Timestamps. I'm just curious if there is an easier way to do created at and updated at. There is not. It is saying explicitly do it. Fine, fine. I can do that. So I want that on my users. I want that on my feeds. I want that on my feed items, so you can know like when I added a specific channel to the list. You could, when in your feed, you could sort by when the channel was added. And then same thing for feed item meta. I need more water. Just make them type an entire Shakespeare's play to make sure their intention is to delete. Yeah, I mean, that's another aspect to prevent user error. When they click delete, you have a confirmation. Like on GitHub, when you delete a repo, you have to type the name of the repo. But yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and like in the real world where you have like a user that does something and then it's gone forever. I mean, ideally, you also have database backups. So, automatically add when you create the model. Type. Oh, good call. I mean, I always copy paste, but at least it's a confirmation. It's like, do you really want to do this? Yeah. All right. I'm going to pull this out into just like a notes file. Eventually, we will support other types of items in the feed. For example, right now we only support YouTube channels. Cool, cool. All right. I think it's looking good. We have like I'll take another 60-second pause. Am I missing anything? Well, that's not right. One minute. Is there anything else I need in this schema? Let me pull it back up. Easter eggs? Yeah, so now all of our models have created at, updated at, which is nice. Cool, cool. For MVP, can you think of anything else? Thank you, Platt. Yeah, we added border radius to the screen and the chat over here. All right, that's it. If you didn't chime in, it's your fault if we forgot something. Password column in the user table. So right now, we've just modeled this with a basic user, but users right now, and when we implement it, will not have passwords because we're going to have social auth. So a user is going to have something like a social profile, and then we'll need to define that type as well. I'm not gonna design that right now because it'll vary depending on what we use to implement social auth. Integer IDs are nice and easy, we talked a little bit about earlier why you might use UUIDs, but SQL databases work really well with auto-incrementing integer IDs. some people talked about how you would use UUID if you're like, they're more portable between systems, but this seems fine. This seems fine. Let's generate this schema. So we did all the hard work of thinking about our relationships and how everything goes together. Now we can take this Prisma schema and turn it into SQL. So if we run npx prisma migrate dev, this is going to generate a base migration based on these models. What is a CUID? I haven't used that before. Based on the CUID, collision free. Deprecated due to security. Use CUID2 instead. Yeah, so use integer ID for internal and UID for external. Yeah, and so I talked about that earlier. Like, you wouldn't want auto-incremented integer IDs in a system where you don't want people to be able to just automatically enumerate all of the possible things. We're not going to be exposing these user IDs via the application. Like, the only way to access a user is by username. Eventually, we'll have, like, if the user is public or not. Feeds, this is actually, that makes sense here. Is this, we need to have a Boolean. Is this, we'll have the visibility. And then we'll have an enum visibility. Where we have, we're going to do it YouTube style, but it should apply to all things. Where we have public, unlisted, private. This gives you the ability to extend your schema with extra fields. Do I want this? Do I want extra fields? Can you start the ID with 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 and count up? You can. You'll just have to have SQL code that sets your... In Postgres, there's a place that actually stores what the next auto-incremented ID should be. So you need to write SQL code that sets that to be what you want the ID to be. Why are people laughing? Did I say something funny? But all of that to say is, like, I mean, I've worked on a lot of systems, all right? And I've always used auto-incrementing IDs. In a scenario where I don't want attackers to be able to enumerate things, you just don't make that available via the API. You have authorization, right? Like, if someone's enumerating and they get access to a thing, they would have gotten access to that anyways. Like, this ID is not a secret value. Oh, they're laughing that it was deprecated. I think, like, they linked to it. I'm hoping that they use the one that's not deprecated. Yeah, and I mean, some people brought up earlier, like, because the ID, I don't know. I've always used IDs. Maybe I haven't worked on systems that are big enough. And is this going to be a big system? No, maybe, I don't know. Right now it's not. Yes. Yes, it's the biggest system. All right. You know what I want? I want a blog post where somebody argues that, I mean, I guess here's the thing, is, like, we are designing our database for the future, right? Because we are, like, instead of just having YouTube channels, we're coming up with a more generic way of doing it. So if we expect this to really grow as a system, oh, good call. I am Danash, or I am Dana Jr. Multi-billion-dollar startup. So, like, right now I have visibility, but what I am Dana is saying is, what if we also want to be able to have, like, a draft? we could just use visibility. Because when you initially create the feed, we will just make it private by default. Private by default. And then it's up to you to go in and say, all right, I'm going to make this public now. So private is basically how you make something a draft. Right? Right. What am I doing? Convince me. The thing is, like, I mean, every time I'm working with a database on stream, someone's always like, why are you using integers? Shouldn't you be using CIDs? I mean, I think in bigger systems, yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. Like, I've worked on a lot of production software that didn't do this, and it's still running to this day. So why? Unique across every table. I think this is something that people are bringing up, is like, you're going to have a user with ID 1, and you're going to have a feed with ID 1. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, GUIDs are a whopping 4 times larger, cumbersome to debug. The GUIDs will be partially sequential. Excuse me. Yeah, I think this is another point that I didn't think about earlier, is to get the new ID for the item, you need to wait for the response from your database insert to get the ID of the inserted thing. Whereas if you use GUIDs, then you can just use application code to generate it before you insert it, which prevents you having to wait for the response if you're trying to like insert related items. This is a point that could actually convince me, because like let's think about this. I'm creating a feed of cooking channels. Then I want to search YouTube channels to add to this feed. To do that, we first need to insert into the feed item meta. So if I search for Babish Culinary Universe and I click it, before I can add it to my list, I need to put it into this table to get back the ID, because then I need to use that ID in this table. But what we're saying here is I can actually insert it with a generated GUID and then use that GUID over here without having to wait for the response from the database. At the end of the day, you're going to be waiting anyways, because I mean, I guess technically at that point it's going to be a transaction, because now you can insert both of these all in one go, but you'll wait for this to insert before you insert that one. And if it failed, the transaction would roll back. I don't know. This is honestly kind of the best argument I've seen for using global unique IDs. Because I said so. All right. I'm going to go to the restroom, but when I come back, I will have made a decision. Am I going to change these integers to be either CUIDs or UUIDs? When the transaction is being committed, the sequential IDs will usually mismatch as it's dependent of the read uncommitted. Yeah, I mean, you can still wrap it in a transaction, though, because you can have a get the ID back from the insert, use that ID in the next insert, and all of that is part of one single transaction. But yeah, did you write a blog post on this, Limotes? Nice blog post. Just doing my part. You need dark mode, though, Limotes. You need dark mode. There you go. Big O of Into the Fourth? About what? Use identity columns unless you need to generate primary keys outside a single database. This is called Dark Reader, and currently I have it set to inverted list only. So by default, it's going to try to dark every single website, but some websites have their own dark mode, like GitHub. So I have it so that only the ones that I enable it will turn it on. What's up, Grim Shadow? Welcome in. I think like honestly, this is the point that to think about, right? Like if the IDs are being generated outside of the system, I guess you could potentially have like faster queries and inserts though, right? Like if you're like doing this in a little edge function, it can generate the ID using a library before it inserts it. I'll think about it. I'll be back in 2 to 3 minutes. People typically leave whenever I go on break, so thank you everybody for hanging out that has hung out. Thanks again to the Primogen for the raid and all the degens that stuck around. You're awesome. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. At someone in chat, give them a compliment. Give them a compliment. Wait, did this not get updated? I want this. On this scene. Like that? Like that. Yeah, add somebody in chat, give them a compliment. I'll be back. I'm going to leave you with the soothing sounds of Chill Hop. Hello. I'm back. I drank my water too fast, though. Thank you. All right, I thought about it. I'll just use I'll use UUIDs or GUIDs or whatever the Prisma docs suggests or is easier. we looked at CUID. Actually, honestly, I'm curious. So it's based on the CUID spec. When to use UUID by Oscar. You can just use IDs. Nice. I'm loving all these blog posts. I'm glad I can inspire you all to write some blog posts today. Compatible with string, implemented by Prisma, and therefore not visible in the underlying database schema. You can still use CUID when using introspection. Since the length of CUID output is undefined per the CUID creator, a safe minimum field size is 30 characters. So when you do this, it creates a primary key that is a string. And then the Prisma library is going to be generating that ID if you don't specify one on insert, but you can specify one on insert. No worries, Pablo. I mean, you're allowed to compliment people in the chat all day. Why would I use CUID versus UUID? Isn't it possible? So I know Postgres has a GUID type. It has a UUID type. Is it possible to use that UUID type with Prisma? Because you brought it up. If you don't want to use Prisma's UUID function, you can use the native database function with DB generated. That's what I want. Here. Gen random UUID is a Postgres function. To use it in Postgres versions 12.13 and earlier, you must enable the PG crypto extension. We're using version 15, so we should be good. Here we go. Now that I've done this, it's going to break my foreign key relationship like this. Because user ID is an integer. Let's see if I do an auto format. No. So now for a foreign key relationship, let's do this and then see if it can auto create it for me. Yeah. And then user ID is a db.uuid. That's what I wanted. UUID, right? So this is going to generate it in Postgres, which I think is good. All of our other tables need this too, but this is going to break all of our relationships, so we'll need to recreate them. So feed is going to have that, but then a feed item which belongs to a feed is no longer an integer feed ID. It is a string feed ID. And then similarly, feed meta is going to be an ID like this. And feed meta no longer has that. It will have a feed meta ID, which is a string. Great. Is that everything? Feed item meta. Feed item. Feed. And then user. All right. Have we? Yeah, we haven't run the Prisma migrations yet. Okay, so now at this point, I'm going to run this command. It's going to generate SQL code. So it's going to take all of these models that we've defined using the Prisma schema syntax, and it will generate SQL code that we can run against our database. And then it will automatically run it against our database. So if I do this, I have my database running over here. The database needs to be reset. If you remember, we ran this a little bit earlier when we were just testing the connection. So I'm okay with resetting the database because it's just going to wipe everything out. That's fine. The migration, I'll call this initial, spelled the right way. And there we go. What's nice is you can see all of the SQL code that it generated. So if you look in the migrations folder, there's this, and you can see the initial migration. It gives it a name with a date. So later on, if I modify this schema, so if I go in and I add more columns to user or I add other models, the next migration, it's going to generate the code that basically takes the current state of the database and turns it into the next state of the database. So right now, we just have our initial migration. We've got ourselves these enums. We've got our tables, which is nice. Looks good. And you can see it's creating all of these constraints automatically for us. So like when we add the foreign key relationship and everything else. Why a folder and not a file? I don't know. Oh, because we give it a name? Honestly, I don't know, Oscar. Maybe it's possible that a single migration generates multiple SQL files. Yeah, it automatically creates the teardown as well. So this creates all of the tables. Let's see it in action. So this is our initial migration, but let's say we go in and modify things. So somebody mentioned something, right? What else could we possibly have? Let's create a comment, a feed comment. Would you comment on a feed or would you comment on a feed? Yeah, comment on a feed comment. So let's say we have generating a new model is easy because that would just create the database. Just create the table. Really what we want is some other property on here, like avatar URL. And this is a string, and it is not nullable. Actually, if I do this, because this is, if I had data in my database, that would require it to migrate the data. Let's actually do that. So right now, if I pull up Prisma Studio and we try, let's insert a user into our database. So Prisma Studio is built into Prisma. It gives me a nice like interactive way of dealing with my database. Yeah, that makes sense because I haven't run my migration yet. Let's get rid of the avatar URL. Well, let's kill it. Start it back up. Because we don't have an avatar URL yet. I'll need to create a migration for that. Let's insert a user without that avatar URL. So the username, it's going to be W3CJ. That's me. It's going to auto add, created at, updated at. We could go in and add like our related columns for like feeds and stuff. But for now, that's all I want. I didn't want to do null here. Now. Let's do it again without adding that. So username, W3CJ. That's it. Save the change. Users in my database. Beautiful. Now, if I update my schema to now have an avatar URL, if I don't make this a nullable column, then it's going to have to remove rows or it's going to have to do some things, right? Let's try it by first making it a not nullable column. And so let's see what it tells me. So if I now try to run the migration here, added the required column avatar URL to the user table without a default value. There are 1 rows in this table. It is not possible to execute this step. That's amazing. Prisma's really nice. That's a beautiful error. That's a beautiful error. But if I were to update my schema to be not nullable, easy, because it'll add the column, it'll be null, and then I could go in and add it. But what I could also do is add a default here of like, where's the correct English? 1 rows? That's a beautiful error. That's a beautiful error. I mean, we knew we were going to get an error, but regardless. So really what I could do is like default avatar.com. If I wanted to make it not nullable, I would need to do something like this. So that way it automatically adds that to all of my existing rows in the database. But let's see what it does. So now that I've given it a default value, best errors 2023, it should be able to migrate it. So this is, we give it a name, add avatar URL. Generates it. We can look at the generated stuffs. So now we have another folder for add avatar URL, and we can see the SQL that it generated. So alter table user, add column, avatar URL, not null, default that. Actually, I mean, that's a super simple migration because it doesn't have to do anything special like copy the data to another table or something like that. Would it be easier to have a default picture for all users and then give them the choice to change it? Yeah, and that's basically how we just implemented this. Now, I mean, I'm going to delete this because I'll come up with a real URL. We probably also, in another stream, we'll set up probably like Amazon S3 or some kind of bucket storage to save our user images. And then we would store the URL here. But now every new user that gets inserted will have that by default. And if we go back to Prisma Studio, you can see all of the existing users in the database, I guess in this case, W3CJ, now have let's just refresh. Now this has that avatar URL. Yeah, actually, I would use Boringer avatars from CM Griffin. Though I don't think this hosts them. This actually just, you can generate them in the within the library itself. That's for another day though. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to remove that entirely and then delete this other migration file. I'm curious if Prisma is gonna complain, because I think there's actually a migration table, like a migration meta table as well. I just made that change to show you what it would do. Wait, what? I got rid of that. Oh, I see. It's telling me the existing migrations, but because I removed them, it's going to reset the database. So that way there's only one migration, which I'm okay with, because right now it's just junk data. Okay. I think we're good to go here. This will be interesting. Let me record myself talking about the database design. Because I can do a little like YouTube short for this. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, right. I think it varies, Ryan. I think it depends. I don't think CM Griffin, at least from the streams that I've watched from CM Griffin, he does not insult every noob that comes in. I think there are certain people that like act a certain way in his chat, and he's just trying to prevent that from happening. But you know, it's a thing. From the streams that I've watched, he seems pretty inviting. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. If he's not for you, he's not for you. That's fine. But I'm okay with promoting him, because at least the streams that I've tuned into are good. What am I doing? I don't know. Let's talk about the database design really quick. I guess I thought about doing this a long time ago, where I basically summarize what we did in the stream, upload that as a YouTube video, pointing people to the VOD. Yeah, I was gonna make a short. let me see how easy that's going to be. Let's do this. We'll launch a new instance of OBS. Welcome in, Yuvraj. Glad to have you. We're going to go to Coding Garden Shorts. And then the output is going to be flipped 1080, 1920. Oh, I forgot. I can't use the camera feed in a separate instance if I'm live. I'll have to record the short later. But let's attempt to make a little YouTube video to tell people to go watch the VOD. A little summary of what we did today. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Itrava. Glad to hear it. Create a YouTube post explaining what I did and put the VOD link. I want to create a video too. Let me get all my tabs ready. We did Docker with Postgres. This Prisma doesn't have a dark mode. There we go. That. See you later, I Watch Naked. Thank you for hanging out. I was gonna show this, but their crow's feet are backwards. I didn't post a Daily Programmer. The one we recorded on Sunday, I want to do a different one. I'm not proud of it. Oh, thank you, Shake and Bake. Hopefully, I can summarize what I did here. So there's that. I also want to show our Docker file. I also want to show our .env. And eventually we'll show the Prisma migration folder. Let me write a quick note of all the things we did and then I want to talk about. So we set up a Docker file, Docker Compose, for Postgres. We set up a Prisma schema. We designed the database. We created migrations. Cool. I think, what is it? GPT-4, I think, is going to have the ability to do video generation. Eventually, we're going to have AI that can do real stuff. No, these are just, it's just my notes to look at as I'm recording this summary of what we did today. Oh yeah, we deleted chat. I guess I'll have these ready to go as well. Let me see how that looks. These are the writings of a madman. I guess I'll show it anyways. Yeah, what's up, Physotronic? And thank you, I Watch Naked. Thank you for the resub. We're using Postgres. We actually talked about earlier why I prefer SQL databases over document stores in like MongoDB. So yeah, we're coming to an end. I'm going to summarize everything we did today and try to upload that as a YouTube video right after this. How's Firefox compared to Chrome in terms of extensions? Pretty much every Chrome extension you can get for Firefox. I haven't found one that doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, you can actually repackage a Chrome extension to work with Firefox. So, so yeah, I'm not covering any sort of deployment today. If I were to deploy this, I probably would use a service. Like, I wouldn't deploy the container. I would use something like Railway to generate a Postgres project and then just point my code at the connection URL, something like that. But yeah, no deployment today. Yeah. Your paper notes look like the Pepe Silvia wall notes from. I don't know the reference. I'll Google it. Is it TOS friendly? Oh, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, that could be the thumbnail, right? I mean, it's a pretty overplayed joke at this point, but. Is there a way to auto-delete browser extension in case the extension is removed from the market? Oh, I don't know. I've never done that. You can use. I'll talk about that in the summary, but you don't technically need Docker, but it is nice because I didn't want to have to install Docker on my computer, which is why I was using Docker. Oh yeah, let's look at logos real quick. Yeah, we're using Prisma. Listed. Not that. I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Planet Scale is MySQL, isn't it? It's MySQL. So I guess I didn't talk about this, but the Postgres specific things that we're doing right now, is this. This is a function built into Postgres. So like technically this code is not portable to MySQL. I don't know. Oh, I did get a new computer. That's why you can't hear my fans. I only did Prisma migrate. I haven't seen the Prisma DB push thing. All right. We want to see logo ideas. Yeah, so these were originally submitted by Oscar. Like a simple sans serif logo or like an Old English logo. I had some ideas. So the name of the app is listed like this or like that. I also thought we could get more abstract with it. Like every single app that has like a list, this is the list icon. So I think this is the color scheme that we'll use, but this could be, yeah, it looks like a rocket or yeah, I think it's fine. But yeah. Or we could get rid of the D altogether and it's just literally the list icon, but in our color scheme. Stop saying that, Ryan. I know what you mean. Don't. I also thought about so like blue for sky, brown for like mountains or ground, and then green for coding garden. Yeah, and then Oscar basically took that and put some sans serif on it. Kind of like that. Ooh, listed TV. Yeah, that's the other thing is now we can try to incorporate TV into the mix. I like it. Why does the L look like that, though? But I like this mark. Let's take a quick stretch. Each color for every platform. Eventually, we want to support all the platforms, so I don't know. Yeah. A smiley face? I mean, this is cool too. There's a not safe for work version. Let's see. Oh, because it's a clown. It's like, wait, what? What? That's funny. What about just listed? Yeah, I'm also trying to. So, in English, STD is a sexually transmitted disease, and so I want to avoid people thinking of STD, which is why I also like separate out the D, like this. I don't know. Yeah. But also, like, STD is, in the programming world, is typically an abbreviation for standard, like the standard library. I don't know. Yeah, like standard workspace, standard library. I guess STI, sexually transmitted infection, rather than disease, is the new thing. I like where you're going with this, Mark. I like the idea of an italic L and then the logo having an italic L, because like this looks very symbolic, right? Like if you just look at this, like, okay, listed, awesome. But then when you actually see it, I like where you're going with that, Mark. We'll definitely we'll think on it. All right, let's do a summary of what we did today. Though I have to use the bathroom one more time. I'm going to run to the restroom, come back, do a summary, and then we'll do a raid. But I'll be right back. Hello, 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 hello. I think I want to add a button to be able to switch to my overhead cam. Give me a second. So we go here. We go here. We also go here. Cool. Stop talking about weird things in the chat. All right, so if you're just joining us, I'm going to do a summary of everything that we did today. And then we'll end it. But I do want to have my tabs ready to go. Let's just pull up the Postgres website. Here. All right, I'm going to hide the chat while I do this. No, I'm not. Just be active in the chat. Make good commentary. And also say hi to YouTube in the chat. Everyone say hi, YouTube, really quick. Get rid of all the stuff about... Stop talking about these things! There we go. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know Twitch chat can show me this now. It says that you were a raider from Primogen. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I was just gonna time you out, but now you're just spamming it? That's weird. Okay. Rude. Everyone say hi YouTube again. Let's fill up the chat. Fill up the chat. Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden. Welcome to a summary of what we did in our Friday project. So this is a project we're going to be working on every Friday. Tune in on Twitch with all these wonderful people if you'd like to see us work on it live. But I'm going to give you a summary of everything that we did today. Also, I'm a little under the weather. You can probably tell by my voice, but we got some stuff done. So we're working on an app called Listed TV or Listed Media, and it's going to allow users to create, share, and watch lists of YouTube channels. Eventually, you'll also be able to create, share, and watch lists of Instagram accounts or create a feed of specific Twitter profiles. Right now, we're focusing on YouTube channels, but we're thinking about, in general terms, how we might expand this to other things as well. So today was all about the database. We specifically are using Postgres as our database, and we're using a tool called Prisma to talk to that database. And so to get set up with our database today, the first thing we needed to do was set up a Docker Compose file. So on Docker Hub, they have this Postgres image, and that's what we used. So in our code, we have this Docker Compose file that we created. Now, if you don't know what Docker is, you can think of it as basically easily reproducible environments. So this Docker Compose file describes a database service that uses the Postgres image. Any other developer can take this file on their computer and spin up a Postgres instance. This is much easier than having to install a Postgres instance on your computer or connect to a remote instance. Basically, I have Docker installed on my computer, I run this file, and now there's a Postgres instance running that I can connect to in my application code. So we talked through this whole file, we set up the environment variables, we got some volumes going, and then now we have that database running in the background that we can write code against. Now that we had the database, we needed to update our Prisma schema to talk to that database. So if you look at our Prisma schema at the very top here, we have the provider as Postgres, and it has the environment as database URL. So we created a .env that has all of our configuration. We've got the database host, user, password, name, port, and then we combine all of those things into a Postgres connection string. But what's nice is our Prisma code uses this .env, and then also our Docker Compose uses this .env, and then eventually when we actually start writing application code, it's going to use this same .env. So that connects it to the database, and then we went along designing the database. So like I mentioned, this is going to be an app where users can create, share, and watch lists of YouTube channels. The initial schema here, we just have a user table. Right now, we're not even thinking about passwords or like YouTube profiles or anything like that. We're going to handle that in a later episode where we actually implement auth. But for now, we just have a basic user table with a username property. And then users can create what we're calling feeds. So a feed is essentially a list of, in our case, YouTube channels. So you can create a feed, give it a name like cooking channels, and the description is all my favorite cooking channels. Now, if you want to add a channel to this feed, that's going to go into the feed item table. The other thing to look at is this has a user ID column because the user that created it is the owner of that specific table. And so let's say you want to add Munchies, which is a YouTube channel, to this feed. You would create a feed item. But we also talked about how instead of storing like the channel ID or the channel URL in the feed item table, we're actually storing it in a separate table called feed item meta. Now, the more I look at this diagram, it's harder to describe from there. Let's look at the code. So Prisma schema file here is our definition. So we have a user, has these columns, and then we say that a user has many feeds or an array of feeds. This is my break timer. Let's take a quick stretch. Now, we also created an enum called visibility because a feed will be able to be public, unlisted, or private. And we just have that here as a visibility column. But the feed, as I said, describes the list of things. So think of it, it is kind of a list, but we came up with the name feed because eventually we want to support other things. If you look in our notes, like eventually we want to be able to add Instagram profiles, TikTok profiles, Twitter users, blogs, all kinds of things. Right now, we're focusing on YouTube channels, but that's why we came up with a more generic name. So a feed has a name like cooking channels, a description, a visibility, a creator, and then the specific items in that list. Now, for a feed item, it needs this feed item meta. And this is where we'll store actual YouTube channels. So let's say the user is using our app. They're adding things to the list. They search for Munchies. The Munchies YouTube channel shows up. They click on it because they want to add it to their list. But what we do first is we're going to insert it into this table called the feed item meta. That's going to include the type. In this case, the only type we have is YouTube channel, but eventually we're going to add other types in here. So the type is YouTube channel, and then we have origin ID. So in this case, it's going to be something like the YouTube channel ID. Eventually, if we incorporate, let's say, Instagram, this will be a feed item type of Instagram, and the origin ID would be like the Instagram username. So this is going to store the specific channels, YouTube channels in this case, because now if multiple people add Munchies to their feed, we can have a UI that shows all the feeds with Munchies in there, or various metrics and ways of querying like that, instead of just storing the Munchies ID here in the feed item table. So this is the more generic table that stores every possible channel that could be in a list, and then the feed item table stores each channel that's in that specific list. So a feed item will have a name and a description. Ideally, like these are just going to transfer directly over from feed item meta, but the creator of the list might want to give a custom name and a custom description to that specific item. And then this will link and have a feed item meta. So for instance, if I wanted to add Munchies, I'd insert a row here. The name would be Munchies, but then the meta would link back to the actual Munchies channel here. And that's about it. So we have some other relationships here that say that one feed item belongs to a feed, and one feed item has a feed item meta, so it links back to this. Yeah, so this is the schema that we designed, and then we ran it against our database. So Prisma is a really cool tool. We ran npx prisma migrate dev, and this actually took this Prisma schema that we wrote and generated SQL code. So if you look in here in the migrations folder, there's this SQL file, and it looks like standard SQL. So it generated these enums for us. We have the tables with all of their constraints and like foreign key constraints. It generated all of the SQL code for us after writing this schema. And then it also ran this SQL code against our database. So if we run Prisma Studio, we can see all of the tables as they exist in our database. So we can see there's the user, feed item meta, and Prisma Studio lets us interact. So like we could insert a user here and everything else. So I think that covers everything we did today. Thank you for watching. Definitely tune in over on Twitch. Every Friday we're going to be working on this app. Probably next time we'll be working on the UI design. So we have right now we have the basic database structure. There will be some changes eventually, like we might add more columns. Again, like I mentioned, when we add auth, this is going to get a little more complicated, but we'll work on that later. Next time, we're going to design the wireframe. So talk about what are the various screens, what's the user onboarding flow, that kind of thing. So thank you for watching this. Hopefully you tune in over on Twitch. And if this was useful to you, or any of my videos have been useful to you, please consider supporting the Coding Garden. So I do not take sponsors on my stream, on my YouTube videos. I'm supported by viewers like you. So if you want to support me, you can become a patron, a YouTube member, a Twitch sub, a GitHub sponsor, and I also have some merch that you can buy as well. And you don't have to do all of them. You could pick one. But that's it. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. We did it. It was a little rambly. I'm a little sick. I don't know. Now that's some YouTube content. Honestly, like the more that I stared at this, I was like, this seems confusing. And then I got over here and I was like, this also seems confusing. But maybe I'm just sick. Maybe I'm just sick. Thank you, Code Eric. Jay Swazo was saying, something I'm very confused is with SvelteKit is the backend portion. Does SvelteKit have a backend in Node or something else? It's generalized. Yeah, so if you look at SvelteKit, there are different adapters. So basically, you write your code with JavaScript and TypeScript. And then anywhere JavaScript and TypeScript can run, you can deploy to. So the reason I don't just say that it's Node is because technically you could deploy SvelteKit to Dino or Cloudflare workers, I think that run Bun. But basically you write your JavaScript or TypeScript code, and then it can run on any given environment. So if you look at adapters, basically you write the code, and then you can use adapter Node and just run it on your own server that's running Node.js. But you also could use like adapter Versal and then deploy it to Versal, which is serverless functions, or adapter Netlify, which has serverless functions as well. So to answer your question, it's just JavaScript and TypeScript, and then you deploy where you need to. So if you look in the code for like loading data, and then it talks about having server data. Like this, like this. So you write this code that talks to your database and gets some data back, and then you could call this when you're rendering the page. This could actually be running as a serverless function or an edge function before the page is rendered. But you just write your code this way, and then however you deploy it figures that out. But think about it like this: like if you're used to like Node and Express, like Express.js, you will not be writing Express routes inside of your Svelte app. Like this is a very specific way of creating APIs. Svelte has its own way of doing that, and that would be like these data loaders. There's also like a server folder with API loader. API, you can create API endpoints as well. I don't know where I'm going to deploy yet. And Thomas is asking, what's the tech stack? Yeah, so it's SvelteKit for the front end and back end, Postgres for the database, and Prisma for the ORM. If we wanted to deploy this to Versal, we would need to have a database deployment as well. So I used to use Heroku. They're not free anymore. You can get some free credits on Railway. Create a Postgres database here. That's going to give you a connection URL. When you deploy to Versal, you're going to set up your environment variables to point to Railway. And so then you would deploy to Versal, and it's talking to the database over on Railway. There's also like fly.io you can deploy Postgres instances to. There's also like Elephant SQL. But you're going to need two separate hosts. So you'll have a host for your backend. I'm probably going to use Versal, and then you'll need to find a database host. Technically, you could spin up your own Linux server. So you could spin up like an AWS instance and just run everything on there, install Node, install Postgres. But I want to be able to have like automatic deployments, so I'm going to use Versal for that. So that's my plan anyways. And see you later, Mark. Thank you for hanging out. Why does a feed item have multiple feed item meta? It doesn't. Just one. Just one. So a feed item has one feed, and it has a feed item meta ID. So, yeah, it is a one-to-one mapping. This array syntax here, I think, is just their syntax for how it links it. But the fact that we have a single ID means one feed item links to one feed item meta. Redwood seems cool. We specifically were looking for a framework that does hybrid rendering, and SvelteKit is one of those things. Redwood, as far as I know, you just have a static client-side React app that talks to a GraphQL instance. It doesn't do any sort of like server-side rendering, as far as I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and that's another option I didn't think of is you technically could create a Supabase instance. Supabase gives you a database connection URL, and then you could just use that. We've actually done it that way in the past. We were using Deno deploy, and then we had an environment variable that pointed to the database over on Supabase. Because Supabase is a collection of open source tools that talk to a Postgres database. So this is another way to get a deployed Postgres instance. Yeah. In theory, we could build a web scraper on Svelte. Yeah, absolutely. So you could basically have a backend route that loads in, like does an API request, so does an HTTP request for a page that returns HTML, parses out the HTML, and then returns it. So yeah, like anything you could do with Express, you can do in these data loader functions. Thanks, Iwick. I don't think I've ever seen this. Nice. Nice. Show me the Postgres. Platform as a service. Linux hosting service that provides CI/CD with GitHub. Oh, I've never heard of DOM Cloud. Cool. Yeah, I have to check that out. Thank you, Iwick. I'm not sure Prisma will work with the Versal adapter. Oh. That's a whole nother issue. Like, whatever we do, we're going to need to make sure, like, if we deploy to Versal, one of the things we need to look out for is connection pooling. Because when you're dealing with serverless functions, if too many instances spin up, that's potentially too many connections to your database. So you need a connection pooling thing. So can we play some pool? I think we can. Setting the connection pool size. I don't know. It should be easy. All right, I'm going to head out. Let's go on a raid. Thanks again to all the raiders that stuck around. Thank you, everybody. I think I might have missed some of these. Grepsy, thank you for the Prime. 48th Ronin, thank you for the Prime. I'm probably just going to go crash after this. But thank you for hanging out. Definitely check out the schedule. I hope to be live again on Sunday. So Sunday the 15th, I hope to go live. Hopefully I'm going to get some sleep. Hopefully I'm feeling better by then. But what I did last week, I want to continue doing is record the news, the weekly news segment we're going to record on Sunday. So if you want to show up on Sunday and give me links to your favorite articles from the past week, your favorite videos from the past week, show up on Sunday. We'll try to get it into the news video that I publish on Monday. And I'll go ahead and announce this now. Let me confirm the date. But Coding Garden is going to have a guest on Monday. No, I'm not. Never mind. 2 weeks from now. And it's the 31st. So on the 31st, I'm actually going to have a guest. Oh, no, it's not the Primogen. It is the creator and maintainer of Feathers.js. The API and real-time application framework. So end of this month, they're going to be releasing version 5, Feathers Dove. And he's going to come on and talk about it. So, but I thought initially it was going to be the 16th, but it's not going to be until the 31st. But I'm letting you know now. Eventually it'll be on the calendar too. Okay, let's go on a raid. If you are a sub, you can use this raid message. If you're not a sub, you can use this raid message. You can also come up with your own raid message. Chris Pratt? Like the actor? Celebrity? I can't believe I lasted this long. I've been live for almost 4 hours. Every moment I feel like I'm on the verge of passing out. I don't know. I'm going to go now. See you later, Code Eric. Thank you for all the follows today as well, and thank you for all the raiders that stuck around. And we'll see you on Sunday. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.